night breathes fire. Your eyes so bright, the dark will guide us through the night. Bye bye, my love, I'll shine for you in the dark. The sky is lonely without the sun. It cried for years, an ocean of tears. It's how it's begun. Bye bye, my love, I'll shine for you in the dark with my tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. My tribe of The night breathes fire. Your eyes so bright, the dark will guide us through the night. Bye bye, my love, I'll shine for you in the dark with my tribe of stars. 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 I knew it would end this way. Writing on the wall was plain safe. Tried my best, still broke your heart. Lost the only thing I wanted from the start. All the rumors I choose. I'm a mess here, and it's all because of you. Turn this water into wine. Yeah, you're used to every time. Take these books, make them shine. Be my nasty, make it high. Oh, oh, turn this water into wine. Brave to admit. Afraid if we talk, I'll let it slip. I'm not usually like this. Can't shake the feeling, something here that I can't fix. Now I break, I don't bend. Ignorance is bliss, had no idea what I was missing then. Turn this water into wine. Yeah, you're used to every time. Take these books, make them shine. Be my nasty, make it high. Oh, oh, turn this water into wine. Make them shine. Make them. Oh. Turn this water into wine.
That we don't know about, but can surprise us a lot. So
Yeah, I think that's fair. We've already seen, Team Queso last year having a great year. I know we've got a lot of underdog teams. Stuart, who are your eyes on for maybe a dark horse in the entire thing? I think we might be able to get Stuart's opinion on the dark horses. I know he's been talking about Viv and a few other teams in the mix of things. While we get Stuart's opinion back up and running, let's head over and find out exactly how our teams are going to make it to the Icons Global Championship.
Take a chance to prove yourself and your team at the official Riot Games Wild Rift EMEA Championship and get your piece of the prize. If you're in one of these regions, sign up now for the WREC Open qualifier. And it is precisely that, open. This means any team can join at this stage. All of the teams participating in the stage are going to be grouped for the best competitive experience by Riot, with teams from the MENA region being distributed to the groups based on their optimal latency. Your journey starts here, and hold that screenshot, I'll explain everything you see now. Through a double elimination bracket full of exciting matches, only the best teams will go into playoffs. And if you do get to the top 16, your matches get to be broadcasted. Do your best, because top 4 is the place to be in this bracket. And the winner goes directly to the grand final. But if you end up in 2nd, 3rd, or even 4th place, you skip a stage and you can go wait for the rest of the teams from the Last Chance playoffs in March. Don't worry if you didn't make it yet, and stay with me because you'll still have a last chance. Now you've been training, your team is at its best, so sign up to the Last Chance Open qualifier, where again, any team can join and will be grouped by Riot. Become one of the teams that wins the most matches in your group and secure a spot in the Last Chance playoffs. This is it. Be the absolute winner of the playoffs and grab your seat for the grand finals, where all groups will meet here for the first time. 2 winners per group, for a total of 6 teams will be traveling to our offline event in Barcelona, where we'll meet our regional champion and our deserving representatives for the Wild Rift Icons Global Championship. We'll see you on the Rift.
You better not miss.
So that's a lot of information to take in for viewers. I think the important thing to note is we're in that top 16 of the open bracket stage. So a lot of games ahead of us, which means we get to find out a lot about the teams here. We get a lot of view into the meta and just a lot of exciting things. Stuart, I'm going to go right to you to start off. I know you're talking about Viv Esports. Any other teams you got your eyes on in this bracket?
I think the top 4 that we all know and love, Game Lord, Team Queso, Rixel, GG and Navi, they're all the teams that we know already. We know some of the players already, but again, as I mentioned before, Viv Esports, KTIL, all these rosters that maybe we don't really know too much about, and the viewers won't know too much about as well. They're the kind of the underdogs of this tournament. Hopefully we can get a few surprises as well. I think that's the most exciting part about this tournament.
Absolutely. I love the fact that it's open bracket. It means we get a lot of players that we haven't seen before. It's also double elimination, so it means that it's not necessarily like you lose once and you're out. There is going to be more time to play out for our teams. So as we go through the bracket, we'll walk you through all of the games. And today's games, I think we've got some great ones this weekend. Hell's, we know Team Queso, we know Game Lord, they're all both playing tomorrow. Today's games, which teams are you looking at?
Okay, for today's games, we have 2 Spanish teams colliding with each other, but I am especially looking for Viv Esports. That's the game that's coming afterwards. That's the dark horse, as Stuart mentioned, and I agree with that. They have some amazing players, and I'm just really looking forward to see what they're going to do in the second game.
Yeah, I am too. And, it wouldn't be a season without some predictions from all of our analysts and casters and the entire group. So we're kind of putting our names on things. I'm going for the dark horse today in our first series of the game of the day with Weigers. I've been watching a few of their VODs. I think if they can get past the early game, maybe they can do it. But, I'm not the analyst on this broadcast, so maybe I'm completely wrong. You two are both in complete sync on the rest of your predictions. Stuart, come on, you've got to throw something in the mix, right?
I think Game Lord and Team Queso tomorrow. I think everyone can agree that they're both heavy favourites. I think the close game is going to be our first game of the day. Weigers against Zero Zone, both Spanish org. Both the teams are going to be very familiar with each other, and it's going to be an exciting first game to start off the playoffs.
It absolutely will be. It's not just our opinions that we want to hear from. We always want to hear from you and the community as a whole. Although when we look at our social media of the day, you can hear from our players. The tweets over on WRE_EMEA put out some content a little earlier on with some players from the playoffs and their thoughts on how they got here. You can also hear more of our opinions if you'd like. Stuart's YouTube channel has his full tier list alongside Xscandal joined for that broadcast, and then Mozilla, one of the players, doing his own. Very not biased at all. Hells, we've seen a lot of tier lists. I know, I don't think you've done one yet, Hells. What's your opinion on all the tier lists we've seen so far? Are you on board with this method of tier lists?
Yeah, it feels like this is more of an emotional tier list than an actual tier list, because we haven't seen much from the teams yet. And obviously, from Mozilla, for example, he put all of Rix's rosters on top. We're just gonna have to see how they perform, right? It's really funny to see what people think of these players, and it's especially interesting to see there is a lot of these underrated teams like Control, and we don't see people thinking that these players are good. Like, we're seeing a lot of these players on the bottom of these tier lists, and I feel like there's going to be a surprise from some of these teams coming.
Yeah, I think that we very well could be in for a bunch of surprises. Stuart, I know that you've got to prepare for the rest of the show, so we're going to let you head off as Hells and I take a few steps further through the broadcast and get closer to our first series of the day. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll catch you a little bit later.
See you soon.
Nevertheless, Hells, we've been waiting for this moment. I know Patterson, he put the Dragon Ball thing on social media. I'm not a Dragon Ball fan. That's my shame that I have to show it to everybody. But it feels like we've all been charging for months for this. Ever since Horizon Cup finished, I feel like we're all just been waiting on the edge of our seats for Wild Rift Esports. So let's take a look at some of the most important stories coming into day one. I think the new patch, people have seen a couple of changes. Ezreal a little bit in solo queue. Hells, anything from Ezreal in these changes we're expecting on today's patch?
Ezreal in solo queue it is. And the thing is, the Ezreal buff is not going to do anything in competitive. We're probably going to be seeing a lot of these mages, like the Morgana, being played in the Dragon lane to be able to push out those waves constantly and being able to roam around all the time. That's a thing that Ezreal unfortunately cannot do. So even though he's quite strong and very strong in solo queue, we're probably not going to be seeing much from him in these games, in the competitive games.
I think that's really fair. We also talk a lot about bruises in the top lane, those of us that have kind of watched scrims in some of the games so far. We've seen a lot of Mundo, but I think one champion being available, Set, everybody's wondering, 100% pick or ban, yes or no? Where's your money on, Hells?
100%. Definitely 100%. I mean, if he's not banned already, he's definitely going to get picked. But what I'm more interested in, instead of him being picked or banned, is how people are going to counter him. Because that's a thing that's, not being addressed too often. And these teams, I really hope, are going to show us how to destroy a set, right? Like, give the enemy a set and counter pick it.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right? If you don't destroy the Set, though, he's definitely going to destroy your carries. Like the number of clips where you've seen Set just pick up a tank, throw him into the back line, and basically obliterate people. Somebody I know who's actually had that in their solo queue games. I've seen it on his stream. I've seen the clips. As is Stuart, who I think we can take a look at some of our key points for the game before we head into things. Let's take a look at the rosters. We'll look at exactly who our players to watch are in this game. So it is going to be on the blue side, by the looks of it, for game number 1. It is Weigers, it is Extreme, Fowlen, Michele, Zero, and Round, and Zero Zone on the red side. Patterson, Lubunya, Sephiro, R Nation, and Fran. Any players to watch for you, Hells?
Personally, not really. These seem like two very underrated teams that we just don't know too much about. We're gonna have a player to watch after this game, right? Like after this game is over, we're gonna see who are gonna be the players to watch for the next series.
Yeah, and there are some players on other teams that we know who to expect a lot from when it's their star mid laners, that kind of thing. And I know that a lot of people know teams like Team Queso and Team WREC. This is the beauty of an open bracket. We get to come into a matchup with kind of fresh eyes on the meta, fresh eyes on the lineups as well. There's only been a handful of games to actually see, and that's if they were streamed from the original rounds of the open bracket. Time to hear a little bit about what Stuart thinks about today's games. Stuart, what are the key points of today?
Thank you very much, Stress. These are the key points for today's game between Weigers and Zero Zone. Obviously, it's a battle of the Spanish organizations. We know that there's a huge Spanish community in Wild Rift, and there's loads of fans as well. And these two teams might be very, very familiar with each other. And Fowlen, the jungler of Weigers, was actually on Zero Zone before, so he's quite familiar with some of the players like R Nation, Sephiro, and Patterson as well, which will be very, very interesting to see. And then we've got all eyes on the AP mages. As Hell said already, the AP mages are really, really strong at the moment in the duo lane. And we've seen R Nation and Zero both play mages in the duo lane. So that's something to keep an eye on during the draft phase. And then the last one is about the top laners, the top lane carries. Both Extreme and Patterson love champions like Camille, which I think will be a top priority during the draft. You've even seen them play like Kali, Darius, Renekton as well. So that's going to be my key points for today's game. Back to Stress and Hells to get us very, very close to game number 1.
We're so ready. We're so ready to get into game. I can't wait. Always this time before our first draft, I think we have to set a few ground rules before picks and bans for day number 1. Yuumi is not available. She's not available. She only came out like 12 hours ago. No real way that she's actually going to get played. It's going to be a couple of weeks before we actually see Yuumi. After that, we've got to look at these red side bans that everybody is going to ban every single game. So we've talked about the set. I think Jace has to be one of those bans that people are going to look at. And then we look to the likes of Varus, the Camille's, those types of picks that can be ultra strong if they're let through the draft. So we are headed into the draft between our teams for game number 1 of the day. Any other picks we need to keep our eyes on?
You've already mentioned the Jace. Camille definitely. In these competitive games, Camille and champions like Galio, that combination is devastating in these competitive games because there is really no counterplay to it. You cannot just get out of the Camille ultimate. So that's a thing that we're definitely going to be seeing heavy focus on in these drafts. And the bruisers in the Baron lane, the Darius, the Renektons, and that kind of stuff. And the AP mages, of course. So that's the conventional draft. And we can see the draft has already started. So now it's just... is Seth gonna get banned? Again, I really hope he's not, but I do expect him to get banned, Stress.
I feel like he will. So to run you through, those of you familiar with PC League of Legends, this is exactly the same draft phase as you would expect on PC. Those of you familiar with Wild Rift know exactly what we're doing here. It's going to be blue side picking first and banning first. Red side will have the counter pick as always. But red side always have their picks that they have to take away, and the ban phase set currently is going to be one of them. It's Olaf taken away from the jungle pool on the side of Weigers. So Olaf is one of those picks that can run away with it. Morgana banned as well. Kind of tells you not looking at first pick Morgana on blue side for Weigers.
Yeah, not looking for Morgana first. If Morgana got buffed, especially in the jungle, like that might be the weird pick that you might see, but does incredibly well, because Morgana's ultimate especially is incredibly powerful in the late game, and it seems like Weigers just don't want to deal with it. Rakan is another one of those champions that, like, there is just some support players that are incredibly good on the Rakan. You just don't really want to deal with them. And then we have a Diana ban, incredibly good. And if I see a Diana ban, I don't know why, but I feel like there's going to be an Orianna coming. Camille first pick. Obvious. This is the obvious draft. Camille first pick. The Galio is open. So Zero Zone definitely has to play around the idea that it's very likely going to be a Camille Galio stress.
Yeah, that's a really strong combination. Fiora is going to get picked up here. This leaves us with a couple of options that I know you want to touch on a little bit. So we always talk about Renekton. You mentioned the Orianna. Now Varus is available for once, and a really strong jungler that's up his Lee Sin, and it has been locked in. So this is a really strong top side with Fiora Lee.
Yeah, definitely a very strong top side. Fiora is a great pick into Camille. She can stop that ultimate with her right post. And there it is, the Galio Camille. This is the obvious, the Galio Camille combination, and they've combined it with the Corki as well. And Corki with his package. Now, can you imagine what kind of an engage Weigers has with that composition stress?
That's pretty broken. And of course, Corki, haven't seen it in a while, but can be played in mid lane. Braum banned for disengage. This is kind of like trying to disengage when you've got a Camille and a Galio coming at you. That's not a lot to actually make it work. But if there's one champion that does have that big disengage ultimate, it's going to be Braum. Varus taken away to remove some of that bot lane presence. Fizz taken away to remove an assassin from that mid lane that likes to push and roam. So that would have been quite a tough pack to deal with.
Yeah, I'm not quite... Yeah, okay, Fizz, Zero Zone banned Fizz. It makes sense. They don't want to be dealing with that annoying assassin. We see the Ziggs ban as well, because Ziggs can actually jump away. Thing is, though, the draft from Weigers is incredibly good right now, because if you look at that composition, there it is, Orianna. I told you, like, they banned away the Diana. That's kind of shows that they want to pick the Orianna. Because really, the only champion that can deal with Orianna in Wild Rift right now is the Diana. So they banned it away and they picked the Orianna. This is quite an obvious draft. We do expect it. But now what? We see a Garen and a Graves?
and here's the flexible potential of red side is you can put that Ori in the bottom lane if you want to. Wild Rift, mages in the bottom lane a lot. We've talked about it. Yeah, this Graves and Garen composition feels like they were kind of going towards this team fight and then took a wild swing a different way, where it's like you don't really have setup outside of Camille now, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a dangerous composition. They have a really good engage with the Galio and the Camille, but feels like they might perhaps be lacking some sort of a ranged damage, because sure they have the Corki, but even Corki doesn't have that much range. And if you play that against an Orianna who does have the major range, it might be a little dangerous. They really have to all in with this composition. The composition that Weigers is running, they have to all in. One-shot the Orianna and get away with it. Because if they don't one-shot her, Orianna with the slows, with the shields, with the ultimate, it's going to be really hard for Weigers to get to her.
I think that's really fair. Like you're talking about the kind of like the arms reach, the length that they can keep them away for Zero Zone. Like Ahri as well. Hard to run into Ahri. Like that charm comes out and you kind of get burned down. I'm excited to see how it goes. This is not the draft I was expecting for game one overall. Like there are a few picks that were lacking until the second phase. So really exciting to see how the meta is going to play out. For me, watching the Weigers games, I feel like their early game is the least solid part. So running this composition that relies on them getting through the early game and getting to team fights could very well backfire a little bit. So I mean, this is it. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. We're about to go on to the Rift for game number one between these two teams. Any predictions coming out of this draft?
Oh yeah, I predict that Zero Zone is going to win this. They just have the better composition, but Weigers just has too much of a high-risk composition to make work, in my opinion. I mean, of course they can make it work, but if they don't make that initial engage work fully, like if they don't just one-shot an enemy, it's really not going to work for them. I don't see a way for them to win a late-game teamfight stress.
Well, we're going to have to keep track. It's always about the execution as we load onto Wild Rift. It is game number one of the Wild Rift EMEA Championship, Weigers versus Zero Zone. And Weiger's going to 5-man stack, try and get ward down for initial vision. Expect fast fights compared to PC League of Legends, those of you that are new. This is a push into mid lane just to try and get a little bit of presence in a matchup where Garen's going to get harassed down quite a lot. This is something we see quite a lot, right?
Yeah, this is something we've seen quite a lot, trying to push out some waves. Now, especially against a champion like Ahri, Ahri can push out waves incredibly fast. So pushing out that initial wave is a good idea to just not have to deal with it. And a funny thing is, it's a Garen mid lane. What is a Garen doing in mid lane?
Yeah, we didn't actually take note of that coming out of the draft. I think like we were so focused on some of the Camille Galio synergy that I was like didn't do lane assignments from it. This is something that's a lot less standard that we don't see. There have been a couple of external tournaments recently where we've had some of the meta play itself out. So kind of interesting to see how that plays out. But both teams are gonna kind of feel each other out for the beginning of the game. The game is quite quick, so don't expect to have too much downtime between these two teams. But it is going to be first gank potential for Graves on this bottom side if he comes into lane, but really hard to gank the Orianna Braum. Like, they have so much zone control. They're going to try it. They're going to try and make it work. Flash forward into the bottom lane with Galio. Not quite enough. They will get a flash out from Orianna, though. Big summoner used.
Yeah, and our nation just flashes away. He's like, I don't want to deal with it. But in the mid lane, if we look at Savira on the Ahri, he can just easily push out the Garen if he wants to. But we have a fight in the jungle.
Oh, fighting over first crap of the game on bottom. There's the charm, lands onto Graves. They're going to get damage down as the taunt does land on 3. Corki not quite into the fight yet. First blood goes over to Fran on Braum. A big first fight already early on in this game.
Yeah, big fight already early on. We see the Fiora and the Camille fighting. There's really not that much happening right there. The problem that I have with Weigers is that Michele is going to have a very hard time pushing out that mid. And as you can see, Ahri is rotating yet again while he has a wave under his turret.
Yeah, and Patterson's here as well, as is Lumunia on that Lee Sin. And Lee Sin is just like one of these super active early game junglers who will just try and fight you over everything. And you can see he'd already got a bit of a gold lead to start this game off.
Yeah, definitely got a bit of a gold lead, and we can clearly see that Weigers is struggling with this mid lane matchup. Ahri is just able to really do whatever she wants. Like right now, she's freezing the lane. If Garen steps up, if Michele steps up, she just goes on him. She deals damage and goes out. If she wants to push out the wave, boom, throw an orb and you push out the wave.
Yeah, this is a really interesting trend from the VODs that I watched of Weigers. Like, I mean, Garen's going to do a little bit better when he can go out into the solo lane once the neutral objectives spawn at 4 minutes, but like this early part of the game, you're right, like Ahri just gets to free push the lane and then go and be in fights. So if they can get a couple more kills like this game will snowball very quickly.
Yeah, this game will definitely snowball if they can, and they have the Lee Sin paired up to do that as well. I want to talk about the first dragon though, because Weigers has a Corki, and what happens is Corki gets the package for the first dragon. They have the insane engaged composition. You can see they all have their ultimates ready. When Galio and Corki are gonna reach level 5, they should not use these ultimates for the dragon. That would be their moment to absolutely destroy Zero Zone. And what I would like to see from Zero Zone personally is if they just abandon the dragon and go for the Rift Herald or a turret, because I really feel like they cannot take that fight this early on with Weigers against that composition.
I think that's a really fair point, and something you always have to keep a track of is that package timing, especially from the Corki perspective, right? You need to be able to recall and get it before the fight. One thing that I do worry about a little bit for the Weigers comp is like, I don't know how good these very early fights are when they need items on the likes of like Camille and Corki to really have that damage output early. Whereas like Lee Sin just walks in, he's going to Q you, do a ton of damage, and kill your carry, right? Like it might be a misbalance, but like the gold is already racking up on the side of Zero Zone.
Yeah, and the problem indeed that Weigers has is having to do with that Lee Sin. Because sure, Camille can ult, sure, she can set up the ultimate for Galio, but what can Lee Sin do? He can kick away the Camille. And that's why Lee Sin is such an amazing pick, because he can, if he's quick with his reactions, he can just kick away the Camille, and he is going to kick her out of her ultimate, and then, of course, you can just escape the Galio ultimate.
Yeah, and it looks like Zero Zone are going to do exactly what you were talking about. They heard the Corki package sound. They're going to handshake these objectives. That's kind of how we refer to it when, red side take one, blue side take the other. These early ones, don't fight over if you don't need to. So it's going to be Rift Herald going over to Zero Zone, Ocean Drake going over to Weigers. So we're in this phase of the game now where a lot of the time, the bot lane carries or the dragon lane carries will sit in the middle lane and just farm the wave and make sure that it never pushes their tower, and it allows the junglers to just go from lane to lane and get any work they can done through the jungle.
Yeah, and really, really well played by Zero Zone here. They identified the composition of Weigers. They understood, hey, we don't need to go for this dragon, even though it's actually probably one of the most important dragons, and we have a fight in the mid lane.
3 versus 2, Braum jumped forward, but I don't know that there's much to stand behind as they are going to hold a lot of the ultimates. Real good patience there from Zero Zone not to just blow their ultimates right away.
Yeah, definitely. They knew, okay, we're alive anyway, so don't have to blow our ultimates. And yeah, they're just chilling, you know, getting to that late game. As you can see, Zero Zone, all of them have finished an item. And Weigers nearly finished the items. Camille's going back right now. You know, Extreme is going back to get that Trinity course. We just have a little skirmish right there. Not much going to be happening because, yeah, it's a Garen. But they've swapped lanes. Interestingly, they've swapped lanes.
Yeah, there's a full swap here with those duo lanes heading towards mid. Now it's going to be a roam up towards the top side. Graves is going to get spotted out with the ball from Orianna, but they actually don't want to engage because that Galio ult can bring Galio into the fight and even the numbers up so quickly. So Zero Zone playing it patiently, but you know, this composition from Weigers has the ability to turn fights quite quickly.
Yeah, and the thing is, they both have solid late game composition. But I would argue that Weigers has an even better late game composition because they have that insane engage. They have the Camille, who's an unbeatable late game champion. And I really feel like Zero Zone is trying to rely a little too much on the Orianna. Sure, they're a goal ahead, but I don't know if you can do that, Stress.
Yeah, this is, believe it or not, is a bit of a slower game than we normally come to expect in Wild Rift. Like, normally you've had like 3 team fights by this point. So I think any composition that has like an Ahri and a Lee Sin would love to get those early kills. In goes Lee Sin to try and get one for himself, forces the flash out of Corki. We'll see if they can loop back on that, but this is a good opportunity for that Rift Herald.
Yeah, they dropped the Rift Herald, and we can see that Weigers is ready to defend. They're not going to get a turret out of it, very likely. As we can see, they go in for a fight.
Oh, they do land the taunt on 3 people. Shockwave doesn't really do too much. They're going to throw the Braum ult onto it as well. I think this might be an overextension if they stick around because look, Garen is closing in, as is Camille, although Camille now caught out on the side by Patterson. That's the kill going on to Graves as Labunya picks up one on the Lee Sin, flashes himself away, and should be able to get back out of this fight now. Oh, Garen locked in position for a little while, will get taken down, and it's all Zero Zone so far.
Oh, all Zero Zone so far. They kind of wasted their ultimates in the beginning of that fight, but it ended up working really well for them. And I'm saying wasted, but they did get some of the members from Weigers at a very low amount of HP, which they were able to finish them off. And now they're getting a mid lane turret as well. This is massive for Zero Zone. This is the advantage that they needed. This is the gold lead that they needed. Actually, they don't get the turret. Huh.
Yeah, it stays at 200 health. It's difficult on that Orianna once the enemy team is back out, but they will push onto bot lane. They've got to be careful they don't overstay because look at that minimap. There's 4 members of Weigers heading bot lane. It's going to be 400 health on this turret as well. So 2 objectives they've not quite been able to secure. Neutral objectives coming up in about 40 seconds time. So they have to reset, get their items, get healthy, and get back out on the Rift.
All of Weigers' towers have no HP. Like, take a look at the Baron lane, mid lane, bot lane tower. They all don't have HP. And this is free gold for them. They want to take those turrets as fast as possible because taking a turret, securing a turret, gives a lot of gold and experience to you and your teammates. So Zero Zone should definitely be looking to get some of these turrets, especially when the new objectives are spawning. You know, the new dragon, the new Rift House. They can try to look for those turrets instead.
Yeah, and at this point, like, Corki's just recalled, well, was trying to get the package, did get his recall denied. That is actually a significant thing not to have for Corki, especially as Zero Zone are going to cut down into this dragon. Perfect timing on this if they actually started away. Corki does get the benefit of the extra movement speed, so he should be around for the beginning of the fight, but it's going to be the inverse objectives taken this time around. It'll be Weigers taking the Rift Herald, Zero Zone taking a Mountain Drake for themselves. That might help. There's, mixed damage on Weigers, but no real tanks on Zero Zones. They could use that tankiness.
Yeah, so interestingly, Weigers went for the Rift Herald. What I like to say is when you have a stronger composition than the enemy, you want to go for a fight. And I don't quite understand why Weigers went for the Rift Herald. They want to take a turret, of course, but they can fight. They have the Corki package, they have the Camille ult, they have the Galio ult. Why are they not fighting at the Mountain Dragon? They can just easily take it, fight, get some kills, take the Dragon, and take the Rift Herald Stress.
Yeah, it's a good question. I wonder how afraid they are of this Orianna, who she has 2 items done. She's not that far ahead, about 600, 700 gold over the most fed carry. So that is pretty strong, but we're not at that point of the game yet when Orianna can just like blow someone up immediately. So fair question to say, but like this gold lead has exploded over the last couple of minutes. So certainly Weigers feeling like Zero Zone are in full control, but without Weigers fighting, how can they ever get back in this game?
It's going to be really hard for them to get back into the game, except for the perfect engage like we talked about. But yes, as you said, Orianna doesn't have that damage yet, but very, very soon she will. She already has 2 items. She has the Rabadon's Death Cap, and very soon she's going to do insane damage to this composition of Weigers.
Yeah, Patterson's going to try and just get the tower from underneath Camille. Oh, Camille, you can only lock one of them down, and it's not going to be enough as the Sonic Wave does connect, allows Lee Sin to pick that up. Now Galio, a little bit stuck 1 versus 2. The rest of the team are trying to close in on mid lane. A lot of damage to be done to this Garen before you take him out, so this might be a bit of an overreach on the side of Zero Zone. Maybe they go for the Galio instead. Fiora going to try and get it, but Corki turning damage to that Charm. Is it going to land? Will hit onto Corki under the turret, but can't quite put the damage down. Shockwave plus the Braum ultimate, but nothing is quite there to pick up the kill.
And we can see all over the board, Zero Zone is just dominating every single lane. And I want to talk about Severo and Patterson as well. They are both champions that have true damage, and they are going to be able to deal with the Garen. So even though Garen can tank up a lot of damage, these are champions that can deal with the Garen. And I'm sure Patterson and Severo know that they have to be the ones to focus down the Garen, because that true damage is going to absolutely shred through his HP.
Well, we've had all 3 of those outer towers taken in favor of Zero Zone, now up to just about a 7,000 gold lead. It's going to take a pretty important fight for Weigers to come back into this, and this Camille just hasn't had the presence of a first pick that we would like to see from a Camille. Like, a lot of her strength comes from being able to pick off 1 target out on a side lane before a fight ever starts, and then coming into a fight and like getting that angle in. But when you're behind, it's so hard to do on Camille.
Yeah, definitely, it's really hard. We see all 5 of them here. They might try to dive, but yeah, they actually go for the Rift Herald push. And the thing is, right now, Zero Zone, every single one of their members have 2 items, except for the support. But they all have 2 full items. Yeah, Rift Herald doesn't even do anything. Weigers, on the other hand, none of them have 2 items yet. So this is a massive advantage for Zero Zone. They need to look for the fight now. Like, they need to be the aggressors right here now.
Yeah, and it's so hard when, like, one of your options is, okay, we drop the Rift Herald and we force somebody to get it, and if they're not all there, maybe we can take a fight. Well, all 5 members are there, the Rift Herald dies, doesn't even get a charge. So, really tough spot to be in. Braum is going to get silenced as he's in the brush. Hits the Krug, not really the target he was looking for on that Winter's Bite, but Zero Zone are going to back themselves away. Fiora on the side lane is so strong compared to Camille. This could end up being a bit of a split push game while the rest of the team disengage. This team setup does lend themselves towards like a 1-4 in PC terms, where like you disengage with the rest of the team while Fiora does work on the side.
Yeah, and I really like that Zero Zone is doing that, especially in this draft, because we know that Weiger's composition is supposed to have a 5-man fight, right? Camille engages, Galio follows up. If you don't have the Camille engage, it makes it infinitely weaker. So I really like the fact that Patterson on the Fiora has decided to split push instead.
Yeah, it really rips Weigers around the map. They're going to focus topside here. They're sacrificing the dragon to try and get the tower. There's no way they start Baron. Zero Zone is so close that this would be suicidal to do it. So they must just be looking for the top lane tower here. But look, Fiora's already there. Braum's already there. Orianna may be caught, though. There are 4 members here surrounded. Can they get a good disengage for a moment from Braum? And how did nobody die there? How did Orianna not get caught out? They still are under the tower, and here comes the rest of Zero Zone as it's the first kill nearly going over to Fiora. Will get the kill onto Corki. Manages to stasis to keep himself alive, and this has gone disastrously wrong for Weigers. It looked so good. It was a 5 versus 3, and it's all 5 members of Weigers dead as Zero Zone clean ace and take the Baron.
Oh my god, our nation with the stasis enchant coming in clutch. Weigers thought that they had a free kill right there. As you saw, they all flashed on the Orianna. They all flashed on our nation. Our nation was like, nah, I'm just gonna stasis enchant. My whole team is behind me. He flashes away, and as we can see in this replay, he's in the stasis enchant right there. Flashes away from it, under their turret, and now they cannot do anything anymore. Weigers has no opportunity to get any kills under the turret of Zero Zone, and here it's just a cleaning game, right? Severo on the RE just cleans the fight up. Galio with the ultimate, that's way too late. Basically, Weigers thought that they had a free pick. Our nation thought otherwise.
Yeah, there's certainly not a free pick. It looked like it should have been, maybe, but that stasis, too strong, too powerful to keep Orianna alive. That's one of the most frustrating things when you're trying to like go on one person and they stay alive. A clean ace, 9
kills to 0. 0 turrets taken by Weigers to the 3 so far from Zero Zone. And now that they have the Baron buff, these towers are going to melt very, very quickly. Top tower already down. They'll focus next on mid tower. And look, the health bar's already half health. Lee nearly hit Corky, looking like he was going to go in. A little bit of flashy dash back out with that safeguard. But here, Weigers are going to throw one last roll of the dice. Ari is taking an inhibitor at the same time on the bottom side. So all it was a little tease around the base. It wasn't quite enough to actually get a fight started. And that first inhibitor of the turret is down.
Wow, Zero Zone is just playing this perfectly. Weigers has no chance, and Garen just gets caught and dies. Weigers has no chance. They have no chance to win this game. Like.
Oh. It's gone from bad to worse from Weigers. They haven't been able to put a single kill on the board. Not even the Nexus is going to secure a kill for them, as the stasis is enough to keep them at 12-0 for now. It is the Nexus falling, as Zero Zone are going to nearly perfect game Weigers in the first game of the Wild Rift EMEA Championships.
Yeah, wow, Zero Zone. I mean, I predicted them to win, but honestly, I didn't expect them to win this hard. And honestly, I feel like this team has potential. They did so incredibly well. They made the right calls every.
They did indeed make the right calls. I've lost you for a moment in my headset, Stuart. So we'll get you back in a moment. We're so excited here at game number 1 in the Wild Rift EMEA Championship. And I mean, yeah, I predicted Weigers to take that game, but it didn't look anywhere near as close as I would have liked it. Very rare you see on a killless game. It really kind of just started with these early plays, like the fight over Crab, which is earlier maybe than we kind of expect. But from here, like, I feel like Camille lost so much in the lane, and it's something that we can talk about as we get through this. But when Camille falls behind against Fiora, then you can't really take these fights in the side lane, can't really take any fights. And the disengaged composition from Zero Zone actually kind of played out way more in their benefit than we expected. I mean, this right here is just a disaster of a fight for Weigers. When you think you've got it, you think you can come back into this game, and you go 5-0 or 0-5 as it would be for Weigers. So hopefully we can bring Hells back in and hear a little bit more about the setup for this and how maybe we can change things going into the second draft. But I mean, I feel like there was some weird things going on with this Garen mid that need to be sorted out. Graves doesn't quite have that strength in the early game by the looks of it to face against Lee Sin, and I think Zero Zone just kind of proving to be the better team in game 1 at least. Hard to argue with a 12-0 lead for the red side. Hells, are you back with me? I don't believe so. So we'll just continue as we watch the game close out. I mean, when you look at the picture that was kind of painted by Weigers, they left themselves 2 strong side lanes if they don't fall too far behind in the game. And they were the team that coming into today, I was like, well, Weigers aren't so great in the early game, so maybe they can get out of it. Zero Zone kind of going, all right, well, we'll just go full early game and get at least in and put our emphasis on the game and our impact. It's a hard position to be in. If your early game is what needs to be shored up, then I might have to draft a little bit more towards an early game. I might have liked to see them pick up the likes of Varus, that kind of pick early on. I think when we look at how the game played out, not really any surprises on the gold leads. A massive game in general. Hells is back, perfect. We're just looking at the gold leads for Weigers, well, I should say for Zero Zone. I was saying this Garen really didn't pay off the way they wanted it to. Ooh. Yeah, the Orianna actually had a decent amount of damage, even though, you know, we were saying, oh, she'll get more damage later in the game. It's still a massive amount of damage on that Orianna. The other side of things, Weigers, really low damage, just because you don't have the items. Like you're basically getting pushed back and you're getting dropped constantly again and again. So we will shortly be taking a look at the play of the game. I have a feeling I know exactly which one it's going to be. I have a feeling it might be that ace, because not often that you see a clean 5-0 right before the Baron, but that's my guess. We'll have to see. But any changes you want to see in the draft for game number 2?
Yeah, I want to see some other bans. I want to see the Camille getting banned. I want to see the Galio. I want to see those types of champions focused. But the thing is, Weigers was just not able to execute it. They were just not really able to execute that composition. They had a really solid composition. And although the Garen mid was perhaps a bit questionable, I still want to see those champions being a bit more focused in the draft.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's check out our play of the game, and you can walk us through a little bit more on how this one panned out.
All right, so we have the play of the game, and of course, it's the one where our nation escaped with the stasis enchant. When he didn't die and got under the turret, we can see they're pushing Extreme to go under the turret, getting that free kill on the Camille right there, and then it's just cleaning crew, right? Our nation is still alive on the Orianna. He's able to provide the damage. A Fran on the Braum, just easy peasy fight for zero zone. They just did it really, really well right there. We can clearly see that they were the best team in this team fight.
I feel like there was a moment of miscommunication you can see there, where like Galio had his ultimate, uses it on the last member that's trying to stay alive, and then they run down into river away from the Galio. And like as a Galio player in that moment, you're like, no, stay near me, stay with me, I can protect you. And then it just die, you die, everybody dies, and you lose the game. But I mean, what better way to start with a good showing from one of the teams that at least I knew a little bit less about coming into today from Zero Zone. That's the beauty of an open bracket, is there's so much information for all of the teams that it's hard to know everything coming into it. But we are going to keep our eyes on more of our games. We have game 2 coming up very shortly between Weigers and Zero Zone. Stick with us. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Breathe fire, your eyes so bright, the dark will guide us through the night. Bye, bye, my love, I'll shine for you in the dark. My tribe of stars. And I breathe fire. Your eyes so bright, the dark will guide us through the night. Bye bye, my love, I'll shine for you in the dark with my tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. My tribe of stars.
official Riot Games Wild Rift EMEA Championship.
Welcome back to day one of the Wild Rift EMEA Championship. We're in the European Open Bracket Top 16 playoffs. I mean, what a way to start the day with a good old-fashioned blasting 12-0 in the game. You were so rarely get to see games like this, and this is like day one, game one. Let's get it done with a really one-sided game. Hells, I mean, we're getting closer to game two. There will be just a couple of minutes before we get there, but we've already talked a little bit about the draft. I wonder bot lane, like, we saw the core key presence in that first draft. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and we're first gonna head to Stuart to hear his thoughts, and then I'm gonna share you my thoughts.
Okay, we'll do it that way, right? What have you got for us, Stuart?
Thank you very much, Stress and Hells. Yeah, I was getting a little bit deeper into game number one whilst the other two were casting. Obviously, Zero Zone, absolutely flawless. They didn't lose a single tower. They didn't even die once during the entire game. And overall, it was just a great performance by Zero Zone. We have that sort of thing that Stress was talking about as well, about the red side flex picks. We saw Orianna being picked for the side of Zero Zone. And that's why the Garen maybe got picked in the mid lane. Maybe they thought, you know, the Orianna's going to go down to Dura lane. Maybe they're going to have that AD pick in the mid lane. But with that red side, they were able to flex the Orianna down to the Dragon lane and pick up Ori in the mid lane. And that kind of gets to my third point, where Weigers had no wave clear at all. They only really had Corki, which was really their main range damage source. They had, you know, a little bit of range from Graves. But other than that, they had nothing to clear the way. So when they were trying to defend that mid lane tower and when they were trying to go for them early skirmishes, Ori was just able to push the mid wave against Garen and just able to roam around the map a lot quicker. And overall, a very, very solid performance by Zero Zone. Back to Stress and Hells to get us closer to game number two.
Oh, Stuart set you up perfectly to talk about wave clear and bot lane carries. You've mentioned the Corki there, Hells.
Yeah, the Corki, you know, I actually want to talk about a different champion, which is the Garen. They picked Garen mid lane, and it felt like Garen wasn't able to silence Zero Zone. Instead, he silenced my microphone. So that's definitely not a good pick to see from Weigers. So yeah, definitely hoping to see a proper mid laner from them in the next game, Stress.
I love it. I love it. Also, I mean, that's talking about mid lane, right? Garen is like, the wave play he has is he stands in the wave and spins around the display. It's like the least secure wave player possible in the game. So yeah, we'll see whether Weigers bring a little bit more wave player coming into game number two. There were some really easy options available for them. Like, we didn't even really talk about this, but there were other mid laners. I think Zed was up in this game,
yeah.
and a few others that, like, normally you just see that priority go right towards. You're like, okay, makes total sense. So yeah, weird draft for game number one. I want to see a different one for game number two for sure. Before we get to game number two, though, we do have a couple of minutes while the players are just getting ready, getting into the lobby. So we're going to head over with Stuart, who has a special guest as part of an interview.
Thank you very much, Stress. I am joined by LK, the head coach for Team Queso. LK, hopefully you can hear me well. How you doing?
How you doing, Stuart? I'm doing very well.
Good stuff. Obviously, Team Queso, the winners of the Horizon of the Origin series last year. You're coming in as kind of the favorites, some would say. How was the team feeling going into your game tomorrow?
We're feeling great, to be honest. Every single day we feel that we are improving and that we're making some progress going into the goal, which is basically Barcelona again. We don't want to lower from what we did last year, and we're trying to make it work as much as possible, especially with the new members. Since we haven't been able to practice that much with the whole new team since we were deciding on who was better for us to fit the squad after the changes. So it will be a long ride, but we're in the correct way. So
Yeah, as you mentioned, the new members, Joey and Method down in the duo lane and Veos in the mid lane. It's going to be really interesting to see them play, and hopefully you do really, really well. Obviously, for this series, 0-0 against Weigers, 0-0 at the moment, 1-0 up. Any predictions going into this series? You think 0-0's going to, take the 2-0, or do you think Weigers will be able to come back?
I expected it to be a little bit more closer, obviously in favor to 0-0, according to they're from Spain, so we know their level quite a bit, but we expected a little bit to be a little bit more closer. I think Weigers is not playing proactively. I actually kind of like the draft anyways, because there was some holes in it, but I don't think it was that bad, to be honest, and they couldn't use the opportunities to actually make it work for them. So I don't know. Let's see in game 2. Maybe they come up and they make this series interesting anyways. So.
Yeah, fingers crossed Weigers will be able to come up with a different and more interesting draft. Okay, thank you very much for joining me with this interview. Back to Hells and Stress to get us into picks and bans for game number 2.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Elka. I mean, this is why I love to hear from coaches, because this is day 1 of us coming in on the official season, and we're like, oh, this draft's kind of odd from what we've seen before. Clearly, this is something that's been run in scrims, and the coaches are like, hey, actually, it's not that unplayable. Like, it actually has these places where it can play. So that gives us an idea that if they see the same thing in game 2, then maybe it'll run a different way. But interesting to hear, about these changes to Team Queso. I know that you've got your eyes on Joey as a player, but we're going to head into picks and bans. Finally, I can stop yakking and we can get in on picks and bans. That's what everybody wants to see. So draft number 2 of the day. What changes are we going to have? It's now 0-0 on the blue side, Weigers on the red. So that flip side's going to open up a few extra things.
Yeah, it's going to open up a few extra things. And this is 50% of the game already. And as you mentioned, the coaches, right? Like, they are the masterminds behind the teams, and they are often the ones that provide these drafts. And I personally, I don't know why, but I really, really love watching drafts. I really love it because it's like a game of chess. They're playing like a game of chess. Like, are you betting the set, or are you picking the Camille? What are we countering? There's just so many things going on in the draft right now where it's like you have to use your brain so hard. And in the first game, 0-0 was definitely the one that came out on top. And honestly, I want to see a better draft from Weigers. We can see the obvious ban here, the Jays, but we can actually see a Fiora and a Lee Sin ban from 0-0.
0-0 are like, okay, we don't want you taking what we just had, so that's out of the way. Jason set out as well. They're red side bans that we're going to see a lot. So, I mean, that's the thing. These one of these picks where if you're red side, you know that they're probably not going to be taking the first pick all the time. So you generally get that really strong jungler. Diana now as well. Was banned in the first game, taken away in the second.
Yeah, and we see the Diana ban again. And Weigers should see what's coming. Camille and Orianna. Why can you see that? There we see it. Obvious Camille ban. And the reason is that it's an obvious Camille ban. And, as a high elo player, you should always see that. It's because Lee Sin and Fiora got banned. Those are counters against Camille. If they get banned, you have to ban out the Camille, because 0-0 would have definitely first picked the Camille in this draft. And right now, Orianna as well. That's another champion to have your eyes on. And again, they picked the Corki. It's not the best pick to pick against that Orianna stress.
Something's going on in scrims that I haven't seen so much of, because that's a Garen first pick as well, with Corki and then Galio on the opposite side. Corki Galio makes a little bit more, or at least the Galio makes a little bit more sense to me. Agree with you on the Orianna. Varus is available as well. I would love to see the focus on these bottom lane to be a little bit earlier. At least that would have been on the Weigers side. There is that Zed. We talked about it being open in game 1.
Yeah, there's a Zed. It's a really, really solid pick, especially up against that Galio, because he can't really deal with the assassination from Zed. And as I said, I 100% expect an Orianna pick right now. And they actually don't. They go for the Olaf. And Olaf was banned out in the first game. And Olaf is quite a solid pick against that Galio as well. And Olaf is really good against that Galio engage. So basically, 0-0 is saying, no, you're not going to go for the ultimate engage composition, because we have Zed, who has the shadows. We have Garen, who's not going to die. And we have Olaf with the ultimate, who becomes unstoppable.
Yeah, this is so much presence on the top side of the map for 0-0, basically taking the full top side already. On the side of Weigers now, we turn to the second ban phase, where Braum going to get banned for some of that disengage. They picked up the Darius for teamfight presence, and now Fizz is off the board as well from 0-0. That's a matchup that can play into Zed. It's a skill matchup. I was talking a little bit to Snitch about that one. So always, when you take the Zed, Fizz is one ban that you can always look at taking out. right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like it's more of a personal ban. Like they might be afraid of a Fizz from Weigers because we don't see Fizz ban too often. And we see our Rakan ban coming through from Weigers, and that makes sense. You don't want to have that Rakan up against you, denying you that ultimate engage with Rakan's ultimate because he's going to be charming around everyone. Yet again, Orianna is open, and I don't really know why Orianna hasn't been picked yet, because that would be the ultimate pick for Zero Zone to go through. That would be the damage per second that they need. And Kha'Zix, interesting. Very, very interesting.
Kha'Zix, so they want to take their jungler here so they can flex that core key between mid and bot. Now Morgana is up as well as a bot lane carry. Ziggs is up as a bot lane mage. Like these picks are really strong mage picks. And it is going to be the the Morgana taken for that wave clear for the bot lane. We talked about it coming into game 1. Got a buff recently in the last patch. So Morg taken as a bot lane carry.
Yeah, definitely bot lane carries, and I feel kind of bad for the AD carry players. The actual ADC players, because you're not seeing the Kaisas, you're not seeing the Vaynes, not seeing the Jinxes, Ezreals. No, you're very likely not gonna see too much from them because it doesn't really fit the competitive meta right now. We talked about it earlier. You want to be pushing out that wave as fast as you can, so you kind of have to pick champions like the Corki, like the Morgana, like the Orianna, Ziggs, because they are able to push out those waves super fast, Stress.
Yeah, they are. One champion not quite so good at that the later the game goes, or at least can't do it quite as successfully. Pantheon, yeah, that's another melee mid lane by the looks of it, where you're playing. I'm guessing so. Pantheon into Zed. I imagine the interaction is around Deathmark and the like invulnerability that Pantheon gets when he's doing his little spear thing. So kind of makes sense on that front. But like this is again a very short range composition from Weigers.
Yeah, they're going for the short range composition again. But honestly, here it's not as bad as the first draft because true we have the Morgana, but Morgana doesn't quite have the damage per second that Orianna has. In the late game, of course, she has insane damage, but it's not necessarily a lot of damage per second. Like her second ability doesn't do as much damage as the balls from Orianna, and so it's fine to draft like this from Weigers.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see whether they can actually, hold that early game enough compared to game number 1, because I feel like they just got too far behind in the early game for that composition to ever come online. This time, as you said, it might be a little bit easier. I think they've got to watch out for that Morgana ultimate. The zone control that she provides with that is really tough to deal with. But this Kha'Zix in the jungle, going up against an Olaf, so am I right in thinking like Kha'Zix you expect to have a little bit more in the early game when it comes to damage, Olaf a little bit more in the later game?
Yeah, definitely. Olaf has very good late game presence, and we see the same thing coming through from Weigers. It doesn't work. Zero Zone knows it. They're expecting it. They're not going to fall for this. And a thing that I want to talk about, by the way, is Morgana. Morgana's ultimate, which deals damage equal to your max HP, which is such a good ultimate in the late game to deal with Weigers, because not only is it going to shred through the tanks, the next thing that it does, which might be like a little secret tip, is it can reveal Kha'Zix. If you use your ult on Kha'Zix, your chain is going to be on him, and if he becomes invisible, you can still see where he is. So your chain will basically reveal where the Kha'Zix is, and it's just such a good pick for Zero Zone to pick that Morgana in this draft.
That's a really interesting point that I know, like, it's the same when you play Kai'Sa into Akali or any like invisibility champion and they get confused why they're revealed. I love those little interactions that do that. But nevertheless, this early game, we're seeing Garen run down Darius, and we need to keep in mind this is a first pick Garen as well. So, that's first blood going over to Zero Zone. That's a bit of a disaster. Looks like it was double crowd control into Ignite.
Yeah, double crowd control to Ignite. The Thresh just destroyed Galio, and Pantheon mid lane, by the way, is really good into the Zed. I really like that draft. Let's take a look at the replay. What actually happened? They just got a catch, right? This is what their composition can do. Thresh hooked him, and then our nation used his root. Easy peasy kill. That's the early game thing that they can do, and they skill very well into the late game as well. But the early game is super dangerous with that catching out potential, because they were able to kill the support like that. Imagine what they can do with Zero on that Corki.
Yeah, exactly that. Like, imagine how much damage can come out. They now secure bot lane crab. Kha'Zix has secured topside crab for himself, so it at least is a trade there. We don't have that exchange over the crabs in this game, but I mean, that's one of the things that I think as we have more games to cast and we look at, I really want to look at how teams evolve around that level 2, because this happens all the time in solo queue. One side gets level 2 before the other in bot lane gets a kill, and it just snowballs the game so heavily, whereas like when you're paying attention to it, it shouldn't really happen. I know that sounds really harsh, but like you've got to watch for those level markers.
Yeah, definitely. Like they, as you said, they reached level 2 before. They had that full engage. Galio was still stuck on that level, and he really couldn't do anything. He couldn't use his second ability to survive. And I also want to talk about the composition of Weigers, because even though Corki deals 80% magic damage, it's pretty much a full attack damage composition, and they're up against a Garen stress.
Yeah, they're up against somebody who's like, okay, I can build a lot of armor, I can get some tankiness and deal a decent amount of damage as well. There's quite a lot of like execute potential as well on the side of Zero Zone. If you look at like the Garen ultimate, you've got Zed ultimate, like even Morgana, if I'm not mistaken, her pool, does it still do missing % health damage?
Yes.
The way that it does on PC?
Yeah.
Which again, when you've got low health targets, this composition is like, I'm just going to pick off everybody that's low health.
Yeah, definitely. And interestingly, Garen is going for a Black Cleaver. I personally would have loved to actually see some sort of a full armor composition. I mean, okay, that would probably not be the best thing, but that would be really fun to watch at least. Because how the hell would Weigers kill a Garen with full armor? Only the Corki would really be able to do that.
Yeah, like, quick, go back to draft Ramos, like, start again. Like, nevertheless, so yeah, we're reaching that really important point now, about 3 minutes 30, where our laners are going to start considering a recall for that first neutral objective fights. Big level points. Darius has his ultimate. He's already past level 5 up to level 6 now. Same with the Garen, same with the Olaf, same with the Zed. So, like, big team fight tools are available. And one I think we have to keep our eyes on is this Pantheon ultimate, because he'll cross the map very quickly. But look at how low health targets they are for now in that top side. Darius was able to stay alive with the barrier for a little while longer, as Garen didn't throw out the ultimate either. And that was a top lane exchange that went in favor of Zero Zone for a moment. And we are back into the game for Rift Herald spawn. Ooh, we might get a fight over Rift Herald here. Look at how everyone's tracking on the minimap.
Yeah, Zero Zone is gonna take that fight. Like, you can tell. You know, they're not like Weigers. They're aggressive. This is an aggressive team. They see that they can win this fight. They're not even gonna give them the Rift Herald, right? Like, you could argue that they could have just taken the dragon and be like, fine, let's take the dragon and go back. But here you can see, this is what you're supposed to do with a composition that can win. This is what Weigers should have done in the first game, and here they are. Like, they're taking this fight, and they should have an advantage.
Yeah, here comes the Pantheon ultimate as he makes his entrance into the fight. There's a low health target on the side for Zed to pick off Corki. That's one of those carries early taken out already. Rift Herald down to 1100 health. It will be taken and stolen by Kha'Zix, but how will the fight go as the double executes just all around the place for Zero Zone? They pick up that Pantheon. They take 3 kills, losing one of their own, but they didn't get the Rift Herald. It was stolen by Weigers.
Yeah, Fountain did a great job focusing out that Rift Herald fight. You know, during the havoc of that team fight that it was, sure, they lost 3 members, but they were actually able to secure that Rift Herald, which is an incredibly important objective, which might set them up for this dragon as well. And now it's a very bad position for Zero Zone to be in, because Weigers has that Corki package, Zero picked it up, Kha'Zix has that Rift Herald, which he can drop if he wants to. Now they can go for the dragon as well.
Yeah, they're going to start that up as it looks like Zero Zone is just going to head towards the top side. They're going to try and get McKelly. As yeah, that's an easy pick off. Rift Herald's going to get dropped down. They can. It looks like they have already secured the dragon as we were in the replay, and it's easy take. So Dragon went over to Weigers. Rift Herald went over to Weigers. A kill in the top lane went over to Zero Zone, and they're working on that tower on the top side as well. Won't be first tower of the game though. We already just saw that one drop in mid lane.
And interestingly, Patterson leaves the tower. He doesn't secure it. Might have been because he was scared, because he doesn't have any vision on the red side jungle, but I would have argued that he should have taken that turret. It's a Garen, he can just escape. I want to mention though, Weigers is playing much better this game. Their macro game is much better, and even though they're still 2,000 gold behind, they're playing this game much better than the first game. They're rotating much better, they're playing more as a team, but Zero Zone, just absolute excellent team. They dropped the dragon, as we talked about. They cannot take that fight on the dragon because Corki had a package and Kha'Zix had a Rift Herald. They cannot take the fight, and they didn't. Simple as that. What did they do? They went to the top lane, they killed Extreme, and now they're pushing the top lane turret.
And I feel like that's something that Zero Zone have to be really careful around, is the ability for Weigers, though, to join in those fights. Like, last game, they had the Galio, and it was like, okay, one person can come into the fight with a global. Now you got 2. You got the Pantheon ultimate, you got the Galio ultimate. It's like, okay, we're in a 1v1. Oh no, now it's a 1 versus 3. So I think Zero Zone in those times where they're like trying to push turrets, that's the area to be careful around. And as long as they play carefully around that, it should be, you know, the way that Zero Zone have been playing out, you feel like it should still be in their control, right?
Yeah, it should still be in their control, especially because they have that Garen and the Olaf, right? These are champions that can escape from these types of engages, right? Like a Pantheon goes in, Garen just uses his defensive second ability, Olaf uses his ultimate, and they can just very easily escape. So that is the power of the Zero Zone composition. And it's really denying the power of the Weiger's composition because, as you said, the Pantheon, sure, he can move on to many lanes. There's not that many targets that he can kill because even the Zed, he cannot just kill. Because Zed might just counter kill you with that ultimate, with the death mark, right?
Well, Kha'Zix is here, Corki roaming up. Galio is in the back of the lane as well. And exactly this Zero Zone are like, okay, there's an opportunity here for us to get caught in top side. Let's play safe around it. Reset. Let's maybe look at a bot side play instead. And you're just kind of pulling that Weiger's composition around the map. And this is, pretty well composed is the way I'd put it. Like, Zero Zone aren't rushing into their engages. They're picking very smart engages and then avoiding them all other times.
Yeah, definitely. And they don't have to, really, because if that Morgana gets to the late game, Garen, Olaf, they have quite a solid late game composition. But you could argue that Weiger's also has quite a solid late game composition. The only problem is, though, Galio is quite behind. He doesn't have that much gold. Garen actually killing off the Pantheon in the bot lane, by the way, pushing the turret as well. Next Rift Herald is spawning. This is massive pressure on Weigers right now.
Yeah, looks like he killed him under the tower as well. So this is now the gambit from Weigers. Do they pick the engage around the Rift Herald and hope that they take it? Or do they kind of deal with the Garen? With a member missing, it's going to have to be Pantheon's choice when he comes back up. Garen's going to reset and look to get back out on the map for Rift Herald. Now, Pantheon will join quicker, but they haven't seen the Garen's recalled. And that is this moment where you have to pick and choose.
Yeah, and honestly, this is, again, a really hard team fight to take for Zero Zone. It's going to be really, really hard for them to engage, and it's just better for them to drop it. Because as you can see, the Corki package. And as you can see, they drop it and there's a fight.
Yeah, this fight shouldn't really happen now. The objective is gone, but that's massive damage coming down from Patterson to start this fight off. And Pantheon, however, has taken out Thresh's friend, is already down to respawn. And this is the problem, is you cannot afford to take a fight when the objective is gone against the team. The team fights better than you, but a killing spree for Patterson, and it is all on this first pick, Garen.
Yeah, that was not the fight that Zero Zone should have taken. It still went surprisingly well for them. They only dropped, two of them only dropped. Of course, they did not get that Rift Herald, and now we can see another Dragon for Weigers. This should have indeed happened, but what should not have happened was that team fight. Because if the team fight didn't happen, and if you take a look at it again, the Corki package is just laying there, and as you can see, it's completely zoned out Patterson, R Nation, and Fran on the players of Zero Nation. So they just shouldn't have taken this fight, Stress.
Yeah, and the follow-up was maybe just a little too deep. I think at this point you're like, okay, Weigers, back yourself away. They're trying to get the kill on the Garen, and it's so close. It's like the tiniest of margins between that and the kill. That Dragon did go over to Weigers as we entered the replay. They did secure it, and a turret goes over in favor of Zero Zone in the top lane. So despite the fact that Weigers have had like a lot of the presence on neutral objectives, 2 Dragons, 2 Rift Heralds, the gold lead's still in favor of Zero Zone from these exchanges, from these fights, and just the amount of gold. Like, Garen is the one that is holding all of the lead right now with nearly 2,000 gold up on this Darius.
Yeah, he's holding up all the lead. Yeah,
fight him as they are closing in, but that won't be enough for a kill.
Yeah, you can't really fight a Darius like that, even though you're super ahead, because Darius wins against Garen in the longer run. Of course, Garen wins in the shorter one. So even though he's super ahead, even though Patterson is super ahead on that Garen, he knows that he shouldn't take that fight with the Garen, because there's really no reason to.
Yeah, you can see he's even trying to itemize a little bit towards the AD that you're talking about. He's got that Ramble Vest, pretty standard anyway, but will be cutting through the healing, at least, of Darius, and has a lot of armor alongside it. That's an engage onto our nation, who's forced to stasis with the ultimate running though, and there is that Morgana ultimate. Zone control just blocks 3 members of Weigers from getting into it. Darius didn't get the execute off the ultimate, so that execution doesn't reset. He ends up dropping from it as well, and now they're chasing down Zero. Now they're chasing down the Corki. Galio is going to enter the fight, but look, there's no health. Here goes Pantheon as well. Everybody coming in from the sidelines is tagging in, and out of this one, Zed does manage to convert the kill onto Corki, and now it's round forced to get spun on by Garen, and Michele is gonna drop as well. It's all Zero Zone. Just throw everything in the kitchen sink at them from Weigers, but they weren't enough to take the fight.
Yeah, and the whole squad from Weigers was there, but unfortunately the ones to actually celebrate the party was Zero Zone right there. As we look into the replay, Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful play by our nation. He used his ultimate, chained up the enemies, used the stasis enchant so he became invulnerable, and the stun still goes through, even though you're in stasis enchant, and then it's just a cleanup. They killed the important Kazakhs and the Darius very, very quickly, and again, like, that stasis saved the fight for them again. Our nation coming in clutch with the stasis and chance again, and I really want Stuart to listen, put that stasis as a key point, because that is what's winning them the game right there. Our nation just being the absolute MVP right there, you know? Like, it really all started right there. It all started right there, because Weigers nearly had that edge on the fight. As you can see, a lot of members from Zero Zone were very low, but it's really all because of that stasis play right there from our nation that they won the fight again.
Yeah, it turned into like one of those martial arts movies where the bad guys come in one at a time, and it's just like one against one. No, go in as five. You have this composition that team fights Weigers, and unfortunately, I feel like that's really reminiscent of that game one fight where they're like, we've got to pick, and then it goes badly because they don't actually take out our nation. Like 2 games in a row, our nation's stasis, as you've already mentioned, is really breaking Weiger's ability to team fight, and that's got to be frustrating. A 3rd item completed as Morgana does pick up the Rylai's. So now you add some extra tankiness, you add some extra slows onto the damage. Weigers really need to find an individual pick. Zero Zone just are not giving them the opportunity.
Yeah, they're indeed not giving them the opportunity, and especially with this build, with the 3 items, as you mentioned, on our nation, it's going to be incredibly hard for Weigers to deal with. And right now, even if Corky gets a package, Zero Zone can just take this fight. They can very easily take this team fight, and of course, they're going to do that.
Oh, Dark Binding is going to land. Graves, Garen, I should say, dodges out the taunt. Doesn't quite get the kill off the ult, but it's enough to take the kill as Thresh was, well, Galio was running back out of this one. They're going to flay back on to Extreme, and here comes Pantheon, but is it going to be enough to turn this one around? There's some damage, but it's surely not enough, as here comes Morgana with the chains landing, walking the dogs all the way back to the base, as that is another clean ace in favor of Zero Zone.
Yeah, very, very clean ace. They didn't even have to waste most of their summoner spells. This was just a very easy ace, and right now it's looking like the game is just over. Because Zero Zone has an incredibly powerful late game composition, and if we look into that replay as well, there's just really nothing that Weigers could have done. You know, they tried to go in with the full engage, but the Morgana ultimate and the Olaf ultimate is just way too strong. They can just absolutely run down Weigers, which they did. Zed finishing off the backline as well. Like, Zero Zone is just playing this super well, Stress.
Really well, and we heard from Elka, the coach of Team Queso, before this game, thinking that it should have been a closer game. And you know what? This one actually did start closer. Like, it's 17 kills to 4 now, but it actually felt like those first few fights and objectives, Weigers were competing with Zero Zone, but now this game is just a complete runaway. 4,000 gold lead nearly in the top lane on the Baron lane, 3,000 from mid lane, 2,000 from Dragon lane carries as well, even 1,500 gold lead on the supports at this point. That's how far ahead Zero Zone are, and with this Baron buff, they're going to be able to deny a lot of the ability for Weigers to de-push, but it's 3 versus 5 in the middle lane, as Pantheon is going to find the way on to our nation. Stasis once again is going to ruin Pantheon's day and get our nation out of this one. That's the kill onto Darius. No more teamfight resets on this game, as Zero Zone are just cleaning everything off the rift here. It's only Fowlin and Zero that survive, and with the Baron minions going to come through from Zero Zone, this surely has to be it.
Wow, unbelievable. I say it again, but our nation, what are you doing? Have some mercy on Weigers. The stasis enchant plus the ultimate again. Weigers can just not do anything against it. Yet again, they just can't. They cannot do anything against this stress.
Yeah, this is insane when you look at, like, so much of the team fight is around that initial few seconds and getting a pick, and Stasis just shuts it down completely. 2 lanes of super minions are going to be pushing in now as the rest of the Baron buff comes through. Patterson going to go under the Nexus, but that Nexus does bite, and the low health bars would be enough for Weigers to pick off and turn back around, but legendary goes Patterson as Fowlin runs afoul of this Garen. Zero Zone come back away, set up for this Dragon, and look to take the game.
Oh god, man, this is just an absolute abomination. So the early game, Weigers did a really good job, and I want to give them massive credits for that. You know, they did a great job playing this game, but late game we can just see the team that's better, which is obviously Zero Zone right there. You know, the macro games, they've constantly been pushing out lanes, they know how to fight, they know how to execute their composition, they buy the right items, right enchantments, everything, it just stacks on top of each other, which allows Zero Zone to just seemingly very easily win this game, Stress.
Yeah, it seems like it. Hells, do you wanna see if I can curse in action here? Because I'm about to say I think Patterson and our nation are gonna end this series with 0 deaths between them.
Oh, wow.
So we'll see how much power we have on day one of this broadcast, because that would be an impressive feat across 2 games of Wild Rift to go unkilled. But nevertheless, I mean, Dragon's already gone down. I don't even think we're going to see Elder Dragon at this point, but if we do, it will be a Cloud. I think Zero Zone, if they just find one catch on this bot lane while the top supers are pushing in, it's going to be really, really hard for Wygas to actually take the fight. And that's what Zero Zone are doing. They're like, okay, bot lane, it's the only place we can be. Let's set up Vision in jungle, push on that tower.
Yeah, and really the only way for Wygas to win the fight right now would be the Darius. And we can see he's 0-4. And the problem is the Morgana stasis just doesn't allow the Darius to use his ultimate. He cannot use it on the Morgana. And then the only ones left are either super tanky targets or the Zed. And Zed is also quite an annoying target to follow. So it's just not the composition to play with Darius. It's really hard to get that ultimate reset.
Yeah, oh, there's a Dark Binding onto Galio. It's going to be enough to at least force some tools to be used as Galio and Pantheon. It's one last roll of the dice here. And they're trying to get this team fight to work, but Darius has already fallen, and the rest of Zero Zone are going to fall in line as well. Wygas are going to get taken out of this one. All 5 members still alive on Zero Zone. They're going to say, screw the Baron. We take the series 2-0. And that is a very impressive performance from Zero Zone.
Very, very impressive. Like, really, really impressive. Not just impressive, very impressive. Look at the Garen, by the way.
How many tower shots is he going to take?
He's
That's
just chilling.
insane. Zero Zone close out our first series of the Wild Rift EMEA Championships. 2-0, looking very impressive while they do it. Wow, Patterson tanked up so much at the end. It's kind of insane. Really, really impressive game from Patterson and the rest of Zero Zone. I mean, how do you deal with that? That was like the first pick Garen that we expected, but like I didn't really expect it to be that strong.
Yeah, honestly, Wygas was just not really able to deal with it. Their draft didn't really counter it too well. You know, they had the full attack damage composition, sure, with the Corki having a little bit of ability power, but they were just not able to deal with it, Stress.
Yeah, they weren't able to deal with basically anything in that game, it felt, which, I mean, it feels bad for Wygas to come in game 1 and go, okay, we got a game with no kills. Let's just do better in game 2. And I thought we saw a better draft and we saw better execution in the early game for sure, but definitely the macro game played out. I mean, these Rift Herald fights, like we saw Wygas taking the Rift Herald, taking the Dragon early on. They even got the steal from the Kha'Zix. So like it looked like the platform that they could build off. But I mean, I feel like our nation's stasis button deserves the MVP in this series. Like the entire series long, it was just all about our nation.
Yeah, it was all about our nation. The stasis and chants were just way too much. Like, why? It felt so toxic. It just felt unfair. It felt unfair. It felt so unfair that he could just click on a button and yeah, stasis and chant, become golden, untargetable, your ultimate still goes through, and you destroy everyone. And honestly, that has been the MVP of this game indeed.
Yeah, I wish we could just award that the MVP. Because that's it. Stasis
and chat.
Shout outs to Patterson. I mean, as we see more of teams like Zero Zone and Wygas, we're obviously going to have more time to focus on some of the players perhaps that don't pop off in our first games. But I think like in these initial games, the Wild Rift EMEA Championship, like this is the opportunity for players like Patterson to go, hey, I'm here and I'm a really good Baron laner. And he won both matchups, sometimes like even in like 1v2 situations. So I feel like he's really impressive in a player that I didn't have my eyes on yet, but certainly now I'm like, all right, Patterson, you're popping off on these 2 carries. And when you're given a pick like that first pick, you show you can make it work.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about earlier on. You know, we just hadn't seen too much from these teams yet, but now we know that our eyes are going to have to be on Patterson and our nation, especially, you know. They were all good, you know, Lubunya, Safiro, and Friend. They all did amazing, but I feel like the eyes have to be on our nation and Patterson. They were the ones. They haven't died, as we said. They didn't even die. They were just absolutely hard carrying these games.
Yeah, we'll see whether that streak continues any further. Like, it's so hard not to die in Wild Rift. For perhaps those of you that don't play, you know, a lot of ranked or a lot of competitive, like not dying against good players is really difficult. So to do it in 2 games, especially playing like a frontline tank like a Garen, like very, very impressive from the Baron laner. And I mean, we've seen a little bit of this meta pan out. My favorite thing now is to see where the second and third and fourth series of the weekend take us, because I don't know that we're going to see as much priority on this Corki. Like, that to me felt like strangely high priority in the draft for what we've seen in previous tournaments.
And yeah, we could see that the priority lied on Corki because of the package. We could clearly see Weigers, they were playing around the package, but Zerozone was like, we're not even going to deal with it, right? They gave away the first 2 dragons. They were like, yeah, we're not going to deal with it. Why would we? You have the Corki package. So they didn't deal with it. And they got to the late game. They got the other objectives on the other side of the map. And sure, they came out on top. So they knew how to counter that Corki.
Yeah, they really did. And you know, Corki, you mentioned it, that package around team fights, around neutral objectives is really important. But in this game, like, there were times where the Corki, like Weigers, didn't get the recall off beforehand. So you go into a Rift Herald fight, and luckily Kha'Zix gets the steal, luckily you get it. But if you don't have that before the fight, then you're just waiting around for a few minutes. You're like, well, I guess I'm just not going to pick up the package. So I want to see a little bit more priority towards the likes of the Varus that we've seen in previous tournaments. We haven't seen a lot of like Renekton either, which has been a big pick around the world. But I think the important thing for us is to talk to one of the players from the game. It's the Stasis King himself.
Yeah.
That's the new nickname. Let's go over to Stuart with Our Nation.
Thank you very much, Stress. I'm here joined by the Status King himself. We've given you a new nickname now, Our Nation. So thank you very much for joining me for this interview. Congratulations. How are you and the team feeling after that series?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm the AP mage. I'm the AP King mage right now, like this meta. But yeah, the feelings are really good. We came to this game knowing that we will win. We will win 100%. So the feeling in the team it's awesome right now.
Awesome stuff. But yeah, as you said, you know, the AP mages down in the duo lane. You don't really see a lot of AD carries at the moment. Does this meta suit you? Do you like playing the AP mages down the duo lane?
I mean, at least it's something different because I'm playing AD carries for like 7 years. So at least it's something different for me. But yeah, I truly prefer the ADCs. But it's fine. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, it's what you have to deal with as a competitive player. Now, going into the next series, obviously Viv Esports against Principality. You'll be playing the winner of this series. Any predictions, any early thoughts? You know, maybe a team that you might want to avoid maybe, or thoughts coming into the series?
Nah, because we really have to win everyone if we want to go for Barcelona. So it's like, we probably know that Viv is gonna win because they have a good roster. But we know all of them are like solo queue players. We don't disrespect them, for sure. But we know as a team, we are 100% better. Like, there is no point. There is no point for them. But we will see what happens. I think it's a really close match, honestly. But I think we will win for sure.
Awesome stuff. Our Nation, congratulations again. Good luck in the next round of the tournament. Hopefully we'll see some more statuses and some more AP mages from yourself. Yeah. But we're going to go back to Stress and Hells to wrap up the first series of the day. Thank you again.
Okay, let's go tier list.
It was only a matter of time before Stuart got memed. This is the problem. You put yourself out with like these tier lists, you and Excounter doing them, and then players are gonna let you have it. I can't remember where you put Our Nation, but you better move him up at least one spot after that performance, because that was good. I mean, you heard him say like he actually prefers AD carries. Like, I would never know that's his lesser preferred play style of these majors. Looking at those two games.
Yeah, and now I can understand why he was able to play like that. The confidence that was just through the roof, right? And it was not like anything annoying or bad. He was just confident. He knows his skills. He knows that he can just destroy the enemy, and it showed in the performance, as we can see right there. You know, Our Nation and Patterson just absolute dominant performance. They were like on another league. And seeing them be like, yeah, we can beat Viv Esports as well. It's great to see, and it makes me very excited to see that series especially. And man, Zerozone, very underrated team. This might be the dark horse that we were looking for, Stress.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm really impressed, and I think, as you said, like, not in a disrespectful way, being confident. He said, like, we don't disrespect Viv, but we think that we're the better team. I think that's a really strong statement that I'm so interested in seeing more on, because, like, I casted the lineup for Viv a couple of weeks back in January, and they look pretty strong in their own minds. So. Maybe not as strong as Zero Zone in these two series, but we have so many more games. We have so much more to see in the Wild Rift EMEA Championships. We're going to take a look at our player of the game. It's going to be between one of two people, and I would drum roll, but I don't want to deafen everybody with headphones on from this one. Player of the series. Oh, sorry, player of the game at this point. This one is that top lane play.
Yeah, definitely. This was the Rift Herald fight that happened afterwards. So we can see that this was not quite the best engage from Zero Zone. This was the moment for Weigers to win the fight. And honestly, Zero Zone came out of this pretty lucky. We can see Patterson getting to 1 HP and still being able to use his ultimate. But this was really the only fight, the only fight that went Weigers' way, really.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it should have gone even more their way, right? It's like you get 2 kills on the Pantheon, you get the objective, you're like, okay, now we stop and we slow down and we either reset or take a tower. At least that's my preferred way of seeing teams play. I know the viewers love bloodthirsty teams. Love with those overextensions as well. Now it's time to discover who our MVP of this series is going to be. I think it's got to be either our nation or Patterson. Is it going to be the stasis button? That's what we need to find out on this exchange. As it is going to be Patterson. I think that's fair. 28 KDA. That Garen damage was ridiculous as well.
Yeah, Patterson, the player that we didn't talk as much about as our nation, but he was just the front line that also dealt the most damage in the game. That's a funny thing, because he is the Garen, right? He's going for full tank Garen. But we saw the damage graph early. He dealt the most damage in the game, and that's what makes him the MVP in the game. Even though our nation was able to do these crazy plays as well, Stress.
I think that's also when you look at like the function in the team, for me, always plays into being an MVP. Like playing a mage carry is a difficult task in itself, but like when you're playing Baron lane, you are a lot of the time on your own. You're basically up there solo. You have to be careful of the jungler a lot more. You don't have that support around you. So I think when you look at like Patterson going unkilled as a frontline tank, doing a bunch of damage, like picking these fights and getting away with it, it's no surprise to see why he's the MVP. And I want to see a little bit more presence, because I didn't think Garen was the first pick worthy champion coming into today, and now I'm like, well, maybe for Patterson it is. We're gonna have to find out in our second series today whether that holds true, as we are headed to a short break. Just a couple of minutes, we'll be back with our second series of the day for the Wild Rift EMEA Championship.
Pizza.
Pizza?
Pizza.
My favorite food is actually chicken breast and potatoes. I'm a big guy, but that's because I eat a lot of potatoes.
My favorite is hot pot.
I maybe don't have the name in English.
Fast food? It's a Chinese food.
Have to go with chicken wings. You know, maybe gaufre ou crêpe. Maybe wait, I can find the traduction.
Lasagna.
Grilled chicken.
Probably some sort of Italian food. Big fan of pizza and pasta.
Okay, it's like waffle.
Oh God.
Waffle are pretty good.
Always one of my mom's dishes that she cooks. I think right now, because it's one of the only foods I can actually make by myself, it's tortillas.
Okay, you know what is waffle?
My most hated champ, it's at the moment...
Emo. Every day of the week, Emo.
I would say Vayne, because it's not fair what the champ does.
Honestly, Jarvan, he just auto-aims everything, and he's so tanky, and he does so much damage for no reason. It's super annoying.
Seth, probably, since it's just so annoying playing against Seth because he is so fast.
Definitely Yasuo. Because like, I can't play the champion well, and like it's really disgusting.
In scrims at least, I mean, it has to be Garen. champ never dies, impossible to die, one-shots you this whole time. Yeah, it's...
My most hated champion is actually not released yet. It's Yumi that will be released in Wild Rift. I used to play League of Legends. This is the most disgusting champion that have ever been released.
Nah, it's him. It's Garen.
Timo.
Captain Timo on duty.
Welcome to the official Riot Games Wild Rift EMEA Championship.
Everybody round, we know we get hype. Everybody round, everybody round.
Welcome back to the Wild Rift EMEA Championships. I am James O'Leary, joined by Stuart, fresh off being memed by our players in our very first interview. I'm Dame number one, starting as we mean to go off. I love it. Players can keep bringing it.
I can't believe our nation said that. He's definitely gone up on my tier list for sure. I'm gonna put like in little brackets as well. I'm gonna be like Status King next to it. He's definitely gone up in my tier list for sure.
I'm gonna do a banter tier list a little bit later on into the season, and our nation, you're already there. Like you're already in it. I mean, we knew. Anytime we put out content like that, you've always got to have the receipts for it, right? for when the players come back. Although they've just had the thing about like their favorite foods, and that apparently all of our players are obsessed with pizza. Which I guess is just a thing. Anyway, less about food, more about Wild Rift. We're heading closer to our second series of the day. And it's going to be an interesting one. I hope not quite as one-sided as our first series, but I actually thought this one was going to be the one-sided one coming in, as I know you did, Stuart. Viv Esports, I know we're going to hear a little bit more about the teams later on, but first initial thoughts on Viv as a team.
Yeah, I think Viv Esports, I think for some people, definitely the dark horses coming into the tournament. I know me and you were quite lucky that last month we were able to watch some of these members on the team. They were previously called Free Team. They got to the playoffs in the previous community tournament as well. So we know some of the players, they've been together for a while as well. And on the other side as well, you know, Principality, kind of, you know, another Spanish organization coming into the top 16 that we don't really know too much about. There hasn't really been too much about like the names of Principality and everything. So, you know, as you said, you know, coming into this, we'd think that Viv Esports is going to be the heavy favorites, and the first series is going to be a bit of a close one. But you never know, it might be the complete opposite. Maybe this one will be a really, really close series.
Yeah, that was the interesting thing that our nation said to you, was like, oh, we think we're the better team compared to Viv if they are the team that they face in the next week or next round of games. Let's hear a little bit from Hells on what his thoughts are on this second series of the day.
Yeah, new organizations indeed, and that's definitely a key point from these two matches, because as the last series, these are two teams that we just don't know too much about. And I know from Viv Esports that they have some good players, but are they going to be forming a really good team like Zero Zone, who were incredibly good in the last series? So it's very interesting to see these newer teams form up. And talking about newer teams, Viv Esports is indeed the dark horse for us right now. And what that means is basically this is the team that we have our eyes on, and we feel like this team has potential to beat out the big guys. It's an incredibly strong roster, and it's especially incredibly strong because they have a member who's called Kranix, who's a former WREC member. This used to be their ADC, one of the best, Dragon laners, because we cannot say ADC anymore right now. This used to be the Dragon laner from WREC, and incredibly good player who is on the main lineup of Viv Esports right now. So these are definitely the key points to take a look at from this game, and now tossing it back to Stress and Stuart.
I'm gonna make sure before like chat and the community blow up and there's gonna be a thread saying they can't say AD carry. No worries, nobody's told us not to say AD carry. Nobody's said not to say top lane. It's okay. We can say anything that we want about that. But however, the Wild Rift terms, at least for those of us that used to play on PC, they kind of die hard a little bit. So Baron lane, Dragon lane, we'll try and keep it Wild Rift as much as we can, but the odd AD carry is gonna slip out here and there. Let's take a look at the rosters and see exactly who is filling in each lane from the side of Viv Esports and Principality. So on, I think the blue side for game number one is going to be Millip, Tyrus, Shugs, Kranix, and Ryu. On Principality side is Sensei, Amy, Blaster, Jesus, and Luis Mavado. Trying to get my accents correctly as a Welshman. I can do some of the pronunciation required from Jesus, but we'll see when we get into game. That might drop when we get into team fights.
Yeah, I think you did pretty well with the accents there, to be fair. Probably a lot better than what I would have done, to be honest. But yeah, both of these rosters, obviously, we've mentioned Viv a lot as well. Yeah, Principality, we don't really know too much about with the members. But yeah, Viv Esports, Hell's already spoke about already. We're talking about the Dragon laners. We're talking about Kranix, formerly known as Friend, used to play on WREC.GG. WREC.GG last year went all the way to the Origin series, went all the way to the final. Unfortunately, lost the last hurdle to Team Queso. So we know Kranix in the Dragon lane already. We know how well he can perform. Not really too sure if he's really comfortable on these AP mages down the Dragon lane. Obviously, we haven't seen him for a long time since the Origin series of last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of fits up into this meta of AP mages down the duo lane.
Yeah, that's really fair. I think one of the other players on the side of Viv that I'm more familiar with is Tyras. I've had the pleasure of, I believe, casting Tyras in some previous mobile MOBAs. So there's a history of competition there that we can't really overlook coming into something like this, where it's an open tournament and all you really have to do is play consistently and play to your own style, because you can't really prepare that much for your opponents. We're heading into picks and bans for our first draft of Series 2. It is Viv Esports on the blue side, Principality on the red side. Let's just get through the easy stuff. Set, Jace, Camille, probably going to be the red side bans. Camille's the open one a little bit more.
Yeah, kind of expected bans that we're expected from the red side. Again, blue side can be a bit more flexible. They can maybe take a priority in their first pick and think, okay, we're just going to ban out the other champions that could be annoying, like the Lee Sin, obviously that early game champion that has so much pressure, and we've seen it already in the previous series as well. Jace being banned away, again, no surprise. Just we're not going to be seeing a lot of Jace. We're probably not going to be seeing a lot of Set either. And it's not really a surprise. Yasuo, interestingly enough, being banned. Maybe it's something that we don't really know about Principality. Maybe that's like a pocket pick. Maybe it's a target ban towards Blaster. Or we'll have to see. Wait and see what happens with that one. But yeah, as you mentioned, Jace Set, 2 bans already gone from red side.
I thought it was interesting in the break where we saw the content with players, Joey talking about how good Garen was, and we saw that in our second game of the day already, how strong that can be. So may well be a first pick. Fiora taken away, one of those picks that can go jungle, can go Baron lane. Camille taken out of the draft as well. So you and I normally at this point would be like, okay, we got Varus, we got Orianna, we got Ziggs. So you don't have to first pick a bot lane unless you want to go Morgana, because they didn't even mention it.
Yeah, Morgana's an interesting first pick. I mean, we haven't really seen a lot of mid lane or Morgana. We mainly see it down in the duo lane. We'll have to see. It's obviously a flex pick. You normally see flex picks normally on the red side of the draft because they do have that last pick potential. But the flexibility of the Morgana in the first draft first part of the draft is very, very interesting. Galio and Renekton though. So Renekton we didn't see at all in the first series. I don't think it was picked or banned at all, so completely different priority for Principality. And then the Galio we mentioned already, doesn't have the combo this game with the Camille. And wow, a Vayne in the first part of the draft. That's something that I definitely could have predicted.
Wait, is that so? They have flex, right? Because it could be Morgana bot lane. It could. I hate seeing this in my solo queue games. If that's a solo lane Vayne into Renekton, I'm probably gonna scream because I think it's so annoying when like it's always your Vayne feeds on that. So that is incredibly early. It's not gonna be solo lane because there's Darius. So that means either Morgana jungle or mid lane with Vayne down in the bottom lane duo. Which I mean, now you pick an early game carry in the bottom lane, surely, right? Like you have to look at a Varus. Like I feel like she struggles against the likes of Jinx, that kind of thing, where they can scale as well, but have that range and push earlier.
Yeah, I think the thing with Vayne, I think when she goes up against some AP mages in the bot lane, which we might see in this series, is that most of the time them AP mages down in the duo lane are not really an early game threat for Vayne. So Vayne is able to stay in the bot lane and farm up. Now, one thing that might actually come from this draft, which I actually spoke to Rio a little bit before this series, is that it might actually be him on the Morgana support. He was saying that, Morgana support could be a thing as well. Morgana with like Caitlyn, which is a classic League of Legends duo that I know me and you know very, very well from the good old PC days. Caitlyn Morgana was a very, very annoying combo to deal with. But yeah, moving on with the draft, Olaf being picked now. So it's a really good top lane jungle duo on the side of Principality. You're seeing Zed being banned, interesting enough. We haven't seen a lot of Zed priority, which, last month when we last saw, these teams that last saw Wild Rift competitive, the likes of Varus and Zed were the ones that were being them first pick priorities, but now it seems like the meta is slowly shifting.
Yeah, that Zed allows you to go for that AP carry in the bottom lane and have a well-rounded damage comp. I really hope that Morgana is now going out into the support role, otherwise we're leaking strats for slightly, unless we're usually playing it in solo queue. I really hope so. We'll see that as it goes. Zed banned away, Ahri banned away, so taking away some of those AP mid lane, at least Ahri's side AP mid lane threats. Early game bot lane is taken away. That's exactly what we were talking about with this Vayne, is like early game threat is what she doesn't deal well with. The likes of Miss Fortune is also available. Lucian is another pick that can really bully quite early on. Not so standard in the current meta, but Wild Rift doesn't really have that foundation of a meta yet. We have ideas and we have bits, but it's certainly not as hard and fast as League of Legends and PC can be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's still early days really for Wild Rift. It's still only, this is the first season of the Wild Rift competitive scene. So the meta is all over the place. And speaking of meta being all over the place, that's a Lulu in the support. This is a really, really old combo that we used to see last year for Wild Rift. Lulu plus Olaf. When Lulu was first released last year, she was one of the strongest supports out there. And combined with Olaf, giving him the extra health, giving him the shields, giving him the movement speed as well and the attack speed. that combo can be so deadly. But leaving the AD, it seems like, to last pick, which means that Galio is now going to move into the mid lane. It seems like it's not going to be support Galio of what we've seen. So last pick AD or AP mages for Principality. Java now being picked up on the side of Viv Esports, and this draft over to the side of Viv Esports, there's a lot of team fight potential. You have Morgana Ultimate, you have Java, which wants to lock enemies in place as well. You have Garrus, which is going to be running around as well. And a Corki pickup.
Oh, we're playing PC. Galio Corki. We're playing PC League of Legends. Thank God these games can't go 40 minutes long. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, this is a matchup that we see fairly commonly because Corki outranges Galio, and Galio can't really do too much in the early game, but neither is going to do too much until team fights. Last pick now for AD carry, or at least bot lane carry for Principality. I mean, in solo queue, you see Lulu picked with things like a Vayne, like a Jinx. I do wonder whether they need early game. That's late game, so it's not early game at all. But I kind of like Principality's comp. It's kind of well-rounded. They've got early game threat with Renekton, with a dive buddy of the Galio, and then ultra late game 2 carries with like Kai'Sa and Olaf. But there's a Vayne on the other side. You can never count Vayne out in the late game. That's where she shines.
Yeah, definitely. Vayne is by far one of the best late game, if not the best late game champion. See, the only thing I would talk about from Viv's drafts is they don't really have a lot of AP damage. They have the Corki in there, which is a little bit of AP damage. Obviously, it gets like converted. I think it's about 80% AP damage that he gets, but he's still going to be auto attacking. So if like the Galio, the Renekton, the Olaf as well, if they build armor, if they build like the plated steel caps to kind of deny some of the damage from the Corki. Obviously, you have Vayne, which has a little bit of true damage as well, and Morgana might be going for. I mean, we'll have to see what the build is for Ryu down in the support role for Morgana. Maybe we'll have to build a little bit of AP damage, because other than that, you know, Viv has a lot of AD damage. But on the side of Principality, they have the AD carries. This is first time I've seen the AD carry versus AD carry matchup in a long time in Wild Rift. So it's going to be interesting how this one plays out. But yeah, they have the Galio in the mid lane as an AP damage source, and they have the Olaf Renekton in the top lane as well, which Darius will have to be very, very careful, because that's a really scary top lane duo.
Yeah, now the kind of like taking what you just said about the AD carries, and the reason that we haven't seen them so much is like a lot of this mid game relies on wave clear, and now I'm pulling that through into how the mid game plays out. Like that mid lane is a lot less much of like clear the wave, move out, clear the wave, move out. Like Vayne struggles with wave clear, she always does, and like unless you got some janky build with you know, if you're one of those people that builds like Static Shiv. I'm trying to remember Static Shiv is in Wild Rift, right?
Yeah,
they took it out of PC like 2 years ago, and I'm pretty sure it's that, but I'm not advocating for it. But all I'm saying is she lacks wave play without it. Anyway, really interesting draft. Very different from game number 1 of the day. It is Viv Esports against Principality. We're onto the Rift already, and we're 40 seconds in, and we're into the laning phase to start things off. So we'll have to keep an eye on how this bottom lane goes. I think like so much of it is focused on late game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, both these team comps do really, really well in the late game. You know, you got Kai'Sa Lulu on one side, you got Vayne Morgana on the other side. The Vayne will be able to get the black shield, which is the really, really important in this game, because you got the things like Galio taunt, you got the Renekton that can also taunt you as well. Even things like Olaf as well with the slows. You know, that Morgana shield can be really, really helpful when it gets into that late game. But for now, it's just going to be a bit of a stalemate for the moment. There's some fighting happening in the top lane. This is twice now already that Millip's gone down to this low health. He's already taken a honey fruit in the top lane as well. But meanwhile, on the mid lane, there seems to be a little bit of an exchange, but looks like they're just shaking hands for the moment.
Yeah, Tyra's coming in to help push that mid lane back out, as Shags is the one in the lane as that Corki. I mean, this is why we've seen so much Renekton in that Baron lane, right? Is that early game presence is so difficult to deal with. He's always going to be known for it. In Wild Rift, he actually kind of stays quite effective throughout the entire game, especially pairing with a Galio. He runs right into the back line, stuns the carry, Galio comes in, knocks up the carry as well, and at that point the carry should be dead. So theoretically, I really like the Principality composition, and it certainly will have impact in team fights.
Yeah, I thought we was going into replay there, but it looks like we're just changing screens and everything for a second. But yeah, in the spot lane at the moment, it's going to be kind of a bit of a farm fest, to be honest, with these two carriers. Obviously, both of them. Again, look at that. Millip again going so low, and Amy's here as well now, and could be a little bit scary. Looks like Millip's just going to back off for now.
Yeah, already ignited. Sensei doesn't have that, so that's the moment where you have to be careful. Once your summoner is down, you can't really overextend under the tower. That's how you end up leaving them on 1 health because their barrier is still available, and then you die, and you had all of the lane advantage, and it's lost. But I kind of expect to see Viv push out this middle lane when they can. It's a little hard against the Galio, and try and secure one of those first objectives. I think they have a really strong teamfight comp in their own right with this Jarvan, with this Darius, but I don't think it's quite as easy to get to work sometimes as bringing that Galio in across the map.
Yeah, definitely. It's, you know, like you said, you know, you've got the global pressure of the Galio in the early game. Going to be going back to the, I think it looks like he's picking up the Rod of Ages for now. Interestingly enough, now I know there's going to be a lot of backlash for this build, but we've seen it a little bit more often. Corki is going for Black Cleaver as the first item. Now, I like to call this meta of the moment kind of League of Black Cleaver. Black Cleaver seems to be on pretty much every single carry that you see at the moment. You'll see Darius build it, Java will build it, Olaf might build it as well. Corki, it looks like starting to build it as well, which doesn't really work too well because, as we mentioned already, you know, most of the time Corki does AP damage, so the Black Cleaver passive doesn't really do too much to help. But I think as an item overall, you know, it will help the rest of his team out, like the Jarvan and the Darius. But, you know, as you mentioned, you know, these first objectives, Scuttle Crab's up now, we've got 5 seconds. There's going to be an Ocean Drake to start off, and Principality look to be able to, they got full control of this Dragon Pit already.
Yeah, they're already here, although Renekton hasn't been able to cut down into the river alone yet. If somebody hasn't done the math on diminishing returns on multiple Black Cleavers and whether it's actually useful, someone should do that, please. It'd help me out astronomically. My mathematics is terrible, so please feel free to assist the casters on that one. So no objectives started yet. This is this awkward moment where you're trying to decide whether you want to match their play or go for your own and just handshake. And finally, Tyrus is just going to say, screw it, let's do the Rift Herald. Let's take that one. Although in these extended team fights, Ocean Drake could have quite a big impact for Principality.
Yeah, the extra healing that you can get on the side of Principality, you know, on top of like the Lulu, you got the Kaiser as well, that's going to be getting a lot of healing. Renekton and Olaf as well, going to be getting a lot of healing from the Ocean. But as you said, shaking hands for the moment, which is quite interesting because we saw Olaf actually invade early game onto the blue side of Viv Esports. We saw the complete reverse, which in PC League we like to call it like kind of split map in a way. We saw early game, you know, Principality and Amy being able to focus on the top side, but now it's a complete opposite, and that's first tower of the game already going down on the side of Viv Esports.
I quite like that they focused that top tower as well, because it puts the pressure on Sensei, who was running away initially with this game, but now is down 500 gold, and more importantly has less room to work with this, right? He now is a bit stuck under tower for a few moments until he clears that out and pushes it and gets out into another wave. So I think, in my opinion, I like the use of Rift Herald top.
Yeah, I could totally agree with you. I mean, like you said, you know, Sensei was kind of having a free day in his top lane, you know, multiple times is going in, and with Amy being up there as well, was able to just get so much pressure in that top side. So now with the tower going down, Sensei has to play a little bit more passive now. He can't really be as aggressive as he was before. And saying that, he's still taking trades, and he still just wants to fight every time. And with Amy up here as well, Miller needs to be a little bit careful. He's playing really, really aggressive in this early game.
Yeah, 1 versus 1, this Renekton can deal a lot, and 2 versus 1, Darius may very well struggle in this top lane. Does have his barrier available. Ignite is available as well, but that has been thrown down by Sensei. It's going to be a push on towards the top tower as Darius finds some solace in the river, but might run into Kaiser. At this point, Viv don't have anything to do to answer. A little bit of a misstep at this point. They're going to try and go mid lane, but there's the flash out. Well timed. It's actually not a flash out at all, as it was... he used the ultimate to dodge out of the Cataclysm. I don't know that I've seen that go exactly that way before.
Yeah, if you can auto attack the Jarvan, and if Jarvan actually goes close enough to the edge of his ultimate, you can actually use Killer Instinct to dash out of the Cataclysm, which is one of the great things about Kai'Sa, and why, you know, she's quite mobile as well. And you can see this Lulu Kai'Sa combo that's roaming around at the moment. You can see the kind of the problem that Viv have really with this mid lane control with Vayne, what we talked about during the draft. You know, Vayne doesn't really have a lot of wave clear. Both these teams don't really have a lot of wave clear. No. Kai'Sa has the Academy Rain with the first ability. It's now evolved now, going for the BF sword, Executioner's Calling, and Longsword. So she's able to push out that mid wave, and every single time you're seeing Rhea and Kranix in this mid lane kind of staying underneath their tower, which at the moment is giving Principality all this pressure, and that's how they got that pressure in the early game and how they were able to get that first dragon of the game.
I'm glad I have you here as somebody who's played a lot of Kai'Sa. I watched your stream and you're playing Kai'Sa. I'm the AD carry that if I'm not literally just auto-attacking, I'm probably useless. Other than Varus, like I'll put that down. But like I can play a brainless champion, and as soon as I have to think about things, it's gone. Like that's why I'm not used to some of those Kai'Sa mechanics. But certainly Jesus has that Blade of the Ruin King now. Getting towards that second evolved. Is it off Blade of the Ruin King, or do you need one more dagger in order to get the second?
You either go for Stinger or Recurve Bow, depending on what sort of build. Stinger will go into Flurry Charge Blade, but some people like to go Dagger for the Ruinous Hurricane to just get a lot more spread damage. And you can see as well, talking about builds, Ryu is actually going for like a 4 AP Morgana build, which I really like. As mentioned during the draft, they don't really have a lot of AP damage, and especially because Corki's going for like this Black Cleaver Solari Charge Blade sort of build, which is a little bit interesting. We normally see items like, like last game, Essence Reaver or Manamune into that Solari Charge Blade, just going for the crit build. But this build is more about Corki trying to help the rest of his team, being able to reduce the armor of the side of Principality with his third ability, reducing the armor, and also with Black Cleaver as well at the same time. So kind of more helping and not being a main damage source than being a main carry that Corki can be. But we're told that Dragon's back up again. We might see a handshake a completely opposite way around, but both teams trying to get that mid lane priority.
This time the package is here for Sharks, and you can see there's a little bit more of a fight. Javan's already started the dragon, but this pressure is starting to build. 9 minutes without a kill is a very long time, but both of these teams have really solid late game. Javan should be able to take this before anybody from Principality can contest, but now they're going to try and take the Rift Herald. But at this point, Viv can come and cut up into the river, and they've actually split Principality. Binding lands onto Galio. No Rift Herald taken yet. It's way too healthy at this point, and maybe this is an opportunity to Viv to just say, okay, let's just try and take mid tower, push it back out, and prevent Galio from at least getting in. But that ultimate is there. That ultimate is available. Package, I believe, was about to expire on the timer, and now the Dark Binding lands. Dominus pop by Renekton. There comes the Galio ultimate, and it's actually going to hit 2 members of Viv, but the Vayne has already taken out Olaf. That some of the damage is gone. Morgana is going to stasis with the chains, locking. It's a double kill for Vayne. It's a triple kill for Vayne. Can it be on day 1? Looking for the quadra. It's not going to be anything more. It's going to be 2 kills going over to Sharks and 1 over to Millip. It's a triple kill for Vayne. I thought that the Penta was in mind, but it's a clean ace for Viv.
That was so close. Krenix was one of the players that we were talking about at the start of the day, and you can see in this team fight that the mid lane priority was the key. Viv was able to go to the mid lane, they were able to push out mid lane, and you can see in this team fight, the back line on the side of Viv just had no problems at all. Both Sharks and Krenix just free hitting in the back line. The Black Shield was there as well, just in case they did get engaged on. But as I said, that mid lane priority, Viv members were able to rotate mid, clear out that mid wave, and Galio was just clearing the mid wave. Obviously, he can come in with his ultimate, but if you get hard engaged like that, and the binding as well by Ryu on the Renekton, catching out the members on the side of Principality, a great team fight, and Viv Esports are just kind of running away with this game now. They got full control.
I had the Penta in my sights. I was like, as a Vayne player, I'm like, yes, this is exactly. I've already got the triple, and they're both low health. I'm just going to chase them down. But I mean, for Vayne, 3 kills at this point may as well be a Penta. Like, she just got the gold injection to be like, okay, second item, all of my boots with the stasis enchant. I'm now basically safe. All I have to do is play to my own range, and everything's fine. I'll just walk this team fight down. I don't really know, apart from getting caught on the side lane, how Principality are going to turn this one around. With the Olaf, they should be able to take this down quite easily, pick up a kill. But here's the engage in middle lane. Cataclysm dodged out once again, was used with the ultimate from Lulu to make sure that Kai'Sa survived. But this is a jungle versus AD carry matchup that looks a lot less damning than I thought it was going to be because of that interaction.
Yeah, the interaction there helping out. I don't think Lulu really needed to use ultimate. I think he was just playing safe. But Millip in this top side at the moment, but I already talking about the early game about him playing really aggressive. A little bit of an overstep from him. Most of the time when you're split pushing in situations like that, you need to kind of look at the rest of the map. You need to communicate with your team, because if you don't have any pressure in the mid lane, if you don't have the minion wave in the mid lane, then and if you don't really know where the jungler is, and if you don't have any vision, then there's always that possibility of the jungler being there, being able to catch them out. And you know, it is a kill over to Principality. That is their first kill of their game, and that's not something that Viv Esports, wants to really deal with, to be honest. If you get little tiny mistakes like that, that's a way for Principality to come back into this game. 5k gold lead at the moment. This Vayne is still really, really strong. 3-0-2, has a Blade Rune King, has a Sorry Charge Rate, going for the Wit's End as well. And once this Vayne gets 3, even 4 items as well, that's really when this champion can come online and start to be a force that Principality don't want to deal with.
Yeah, that's so true. A couple of items being built so far by both teams to try and combat some of the strengths of the others. I love to see the Oblivion Orb on the full AP Morgana this early on, cut through some of the healing that's going to come through from the side of Principality that we already touched on. Likewise, on the other side, the Shadows boot enchant is going to reveal Vayne if she's one of the targets, but Vayne is going to play with Fire 1 versus 4 around the middle lane. Don't need the Shadows enchant for that one. However, Viv kind of have the momentum to go down towards this dragon and look at taking their second of the game with this mountain.
Yeah, you can see again, it's a situation where the jungler, again, for the side of Viv Tyras, is just being able to take the dragon for completely free. And meanwhile, Viv are just distracting all the members of the mid lane. The Rift Tile's been spawned, but the dragon is still at 2k.
Kranix is low though, and if he gets caught, this might very well be enough. Forced to stasis out early on, and it's going to be an attempt from Renekton to get into the back lane. The dragon has been stolen somehow by Galio as Principality. This is way closer than it should have been from the way that this team fight started. And Millip is going to try and clean the rest of it up as Dunkmaster Darius gets himself a 3-pointer.
They were trying so hard there to try and contest the dragon. Even though Tyrus was doing it by itself, it was going so slowly. And I think it was on about 2,000 health when Principality realized, wait, we need to actually do something with the dragon. And you can see the team fight here, the backline. Kai'Sa trying to jump on Shark, but Shark doing so well to escape all the time. But Millip, look, in this backline, being able to just dunk and get the resets, being able to get the ultimate resets as well. Just getting an auto attack onto Jesus, boom, another dunk. And then Blaster as well, there's just no way you can escape. Another dunk as well. And once Darius could get the resets, which he was really easily been able to do on someone like a Lulu that doesn't really build a lot of defenses. So if you get the reset on the dunks, if you can carry on auto attacking and getting them stacks of the passive, he could just keep dunking for the rest of the game. And Millip, we've kind of spoken about him being a little bit aggressive, but in that team fight, he was the dunk master.
Yeah, it did everything he needed to do. I feel like Kranix getting chunked out to start that fight, that feels so bad as a Vayne because you're so short range. You're like, okay, I can't really do too much in this fight. So maybe that's one of the reasons why Principality were able to kind of turn this one back around. It's a 2 versus 1 in the bottom lane. Olaf is not going to be there anywhere near enough in time. And now this this Vayne, I should say, is monstrous. Going to try and chase down Olaf in the side lane as well. Dark Binding does land mid lane. Shots should have enough to pick that one up. It's not enough as the Kai'Sa tries to stay alive. Will try and get one more as Lulu's fallen. It's just falling apart at the seams for Principality. It looked like Viv maybe had found a bad fight for themselves in the previous one with Principality. Now 3 people down as Baron is up. That should very well be the objective.
The reuse on these on this Morgana this game with the bindings have been so clutch, during the Rift Herald fight as well, and that mid lane pick onto Kai'Sa, with Sharks just behind, just really easy pickings at the moment. And this Morgana support, we spoke about this Morgana dual lane, we spoke a little bit about Morgana mid lane. Morgana support's not really something that we normally see, because with supports, you don't really get that much farm, you don't really get that much gold, so sometimes it's hard to be able to do a lot of damage and be that wave clear tool. But you can see he's building Rylai's Crystal Scepter, he's now going for the Andrew's Tournament, and with this combination of these 2 items, your pool will be able to slow, and it will also give you more damage from the Andrew's Tournament as well. Because if you don't know, with the Andrew's Tournament, if you do slow or immobilize the champion, you will be able to deal more damage. So the combination of 2 items, then you have Ludens for the extra mana as well. And again, he's like the AP damage source, even though the rest of his team is AD. He's the support, and he's the one that has all the AP damage source. You can see the pool is just slowing all the members in the binding. Morgana support's actually doing quite a lot of damage.
Wow, that damage was huge onto Jesus. I was about to say that, like, despite the fact that this Kai'Sa was put back early on in the game, I feel like Jesus has soaked a lot of the incoming minion waves and actually has about equivalent gold to Vayne, which, considering this game is nearly a 10,000 gold difference between the two, at least gives Principality a way out of this. But there's not enough damage to eat through the health bars so far, and multiple waves of super minions are pushing up towards the inhibitors, and it's really just one fight left for Principality. If they can get another good one, there's the package in from Corki, and the health bars have fallen already for Viv, but it's all about Kranix. Can the damage come down? It's Sharks that picks up one. It's actually Ryu that picks up the second, and it looked like a good start to the fight for Principality, but Viv easily shut down that bottom inhibitor.
Yeah, I think Principality are feeling the pressure now. They've got 2 inhibitors down. I think they were trying to team fight because they know that if they lose these inhibitors, then it's going to be really hard for them to come back. If you don't know in Wild Rift, if you come from recently, the inhibitors don't actually respawn. But you see, Kranix was actually stuck here. He was in stasis, and it was a really, really good knockup for Blaster, but there was just no follow-up in damage at the moment. Viv Esports are just so far ahead in gold. You can see that Kranix is just... He doesn't care at all. He's a Vayne now. He has 4 items. Exactly. He knows what he's doing. It's actually the Elder Dragon that's spawning now as well. We're fast approaching into this late game, and if Viv can take this, that's going to be game over.
Yeah, Ryu looks like he didn't have stasis for that one. His Elder Dragon's still 1600 health. Doesn't even need the jungler here, as that's a double kill for Millip. It was the layup from the Vayne to start this game, but Millip has been crushing these team fights for the last few minutes. And aside from one big Kai'Sa play with this Renekton, I don't think that there's a whole lot more in the tank for Principality. They're going to try and push down the Nexus in favor of Viv. In goes Kai'Sa, out goes Kai'Sa, and down goes Kai'Sa as Viv Esports are going to take the Nexus and take game 1 against Principality.
Yeah, a very, very good game for the side of Viv Esports, and overall really, really solid performance. Again, going into this, we were talking about Kranix in the duo lane. In the first rotation of the draft, he picks Vayne. If that's a statement, if you want to make a statement in your first game of the EMEA Championships, first picking Vayne with a Morgana support in the first rotation, that's one way to deal with it. But you can see, in the end, Principality, they were just going for the desperation in the end. They were trying to team fight. They knew that if they were going to lose the Elder Dragon, especially Elder Inferno, there's no really coming back from that. And in the end, Viv Esports take a pretty convincingly first game of the series.
Yeah, that was, convincing is the best way of putting it, especially when you pick Vayne in round 1. That's kind of like almost suicidal in a way, because I feel like it should be a difficult game to play out. But this fight, like just setting up the Vayne for triple kill, I think this kind of took away a lot of the worries that I had anymore for the Vayne in this composition, because it allowed Millip to get online. Millip just kind of rolled through these fights with the Darius, and I still like what Principality brought to the table. I think I'm so glad to see it was a close game with some of these team fights, because I think if just a few things go a different way, Principality actually could quite easily have taken this game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even though we say that it was a convincing win by Viv Esports, it definitely wasn't a complete stomp that we really saw in the first series. There were opportunities that Principality had to try and come back into this game. But again, we spoke about it really the start of it and in draft as well. We were talking about that mid lane priority and that mid lane pressure that can be taken from these two teams. And even though they both had AD carries, they both didn't have the best of wave clear. Viv was the ones that were roaming around as 5 members. They were the ones getting that mid lane priority. And you can see if you have that mid lane priority, and if you have that pushing mid lane pressure, you can look to roam around to these objectives. You can look to try and control the river. And as you can see, in this last clip here, Principality, they were trying to go for the Elder Dragon. They were trying to pretty much force their way through into the Elder Dragon to try and steal it in the end. But unfortunately for them, they weren't able to take the first game. And Viv Esports, they're going to be going into this second game feeling very, very confident.
Very confident. I mean, those little areas in the jungle where you're collapsed in, Morgana loves fighting there, Vayne loves fighting there because the condemns are easy, like hard to approach the dragon at that point. And I think Viv, with this Vayne, with the Darius, is too far ahead. I thought it was a really good performance overall, actually. I know Sharks had a quiet game, but as we head towards our play of the game, like, talk us through exactly, the way that the multiple carries played out a lot of these team fights.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we spoke about Vayne, we spoke about Darius. They're kind of the main carries, and it's going to be around this Rift Herald. We had to do it. Vayne was so close. But as you can see, Vayne all the time. If you keep your eyes on Vayne, he's just auto-attacking for free. There's nothing on the side of Principality can do about it. And when Vayne is just able to just be in the back line, auto-attack multiple times, and he was so close to getting a pentakill. He was the one that we were talking about in this series. If he got a pentakill as well on first rotation Vayne, that would have been just the nail on the coffin, really, for me. I mean, that would have been, been so good, to be honest, to be able to get Penta. But in the end, unfortunately, it was just a triple.
I'd have packed up day one. I'm like, Penta, we peaked. I'm just going to go. Don't worry about it. No, I mean, great performance from the Vayne. I want to talk a little bit more about jungle and mid lane as we head into our second game, but that is going to come up in just a few minutes' time. We've already seen 1-2-0 today. I'm kind of hoping to get a third game in this series, but it is Viv Esports going up against Principality. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
night breathes fire. Your eyes so bright. The dark will guide us through the night. Bye, bye, my love. I'll shine for you in the dark. The sky is lonely without the sun. It cried for years, an ocean of tears. It's how it's begun. Bye, bye, my love. I'll shine for you in the dark with my tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. Night breathes fire. Your eyes so bright. The dark will guide us through the night. Bye bye, my love. I'll shine for you in the dark with my tribe of stars. 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 My tribe of stars.
Welcome to the official Riot Games WREC EMEA Championship.
Everybody round here know we get hype. Everybody round, everybody round, everybody round, everybody round. Everybody round, everybody round, everybody round, everybody round, everybody round here know we get hype.
Welcome back, everybody, to day 2. It's our second series already underway. We're 1-0 up from Viv Esports going up against Principality. And that was a closer game, but a different game to what we were expecting. Some really odd and good meta changes. And Stuart, I am going to ask for your opinion in a couple of moments' time. There's somebody I want to hear from before we get a long time to talk in game 2, and that is Hells. I know you, Hells, you're watching game 1. You have some key points that you want to bring up as we head towards game 2.
Yeah, definitely stressed. So this was a crazy game, and especially crazy for Viv Esports. Their team fighting was so amazing, and like you could see it through the early game. That moment when Vayne nearly got the pentakill, right? They just played it perfectly. Vayne in the backline, the bruisers going in, buying a lot of time, and the support, Ryu. Oh my God, Ryu! Can you even call him a support anymore? He was playing the Morgana and he was roaming around constantly. He was doing constant rotations, helping out everyone throughout the team. In the late game, dealing so much damage. And talking about the late game team fights, Viv was full of carries. Every single players of their team could carry the team fight. You know, Corki can carry it. Darius carried one of the team fights with that passive. Vayne, do I even have to mention Vayne? Morgana with that ultimate. Corki, just they were all carries, and that's what made Viv absolutely dominating in this game. So that's it for the key points, and now tossing it back to Stress and Stuart.
I think volume of carries, it was so evident in those team fights. You're like, oh, Krennic's died. Okay, Shags and Miller are just here to like shred everyone. Stuart, thank you for joining me again for game 2. Fun game 1, but a little bit different on the meta than we were expecting, right?
Yeah, I think both of these series already, we've seen a completely different meta in both of these series. We've gone from not seeing Morgana really a lot in the first series to like a first pick Morgana Vayne rotation. And it's going to be really interesting to see now. Probably the sides are going to be swapped. I wouldn't be surprised if Principality would want to take red side now, and Viv Esports might be on the Viv Esports might be on the red side, and Principality might be on the blue side, which might change things up. We'll have to see as we get into picks and bans very, very shortly. But my eyes are all on the Viv Esports now. Are they going to try and take this Morgana first rotation again, and even take Vayne early on? And what I want to see from Principality is this early game pressure. You know, if they want to pick Vayne again, we need to see some aggression down the dual lane. I feel like there wasn't really much pressure down the dual lane. You saw Amy on the jungle kind of focus more on the top side, which did work a little bit in the early game, but going into the late game, Garrus was able to just dunk around, and as Hell said, you know, multiple carries. There was nothing really that Principality could have done about it.
Yeah, I totally agree on the early game pressure. Full disclosure, I'm not a Challenger player. I hang around about in Diamond and Emerald, but whenever I'm playing Vayne, I'm like, if I'm facing a Misfortune or a Varus or something, or like a Caitlyn, anything that can pressure you in lane, that's when it feels the worst, right? And Stuart, I know you play a lot of Dragon Lane carry yourself. Like, that's how you punish a Vayne, and if you don't, prepare to lose the game. Because there's not many champions that can deal with her when she's far ahead.
I think that's a problem, especially the early kill around the Rift Herald as well was so huge. But enough of us talking about the previous game. We're going to be getting into picks and bans for game number 2. Again, it's going to be interesting to see what sides these two teams pick. So it's going to be Viv Esports now on the red side and Principality on the blue side. So Principality now are the ones that are going to get that first pick priority. Are they the ones that maybe going to be going for that Morgana, or are they going to look to ban it out? But it's going to be Varus being that first ban to start.
Okay, so just historically in draft, blue side banning a particular role gives you a good idea of their thoughts for first pick. I would be eyeing up, like, are you going to ban Varus and try and first pick the Morgana for like the bot lane? So you want to take away one of those strong laners. Lee Sin banned red side. This is something we really haven't seen, because red side normally you have to ban like Jace, you have to ban the set in the current meta, typically Camille, but removing that jungler, Galio gone as well. Like, there's a lot of these picks that haven't always been banned away, taken out of the second game.
Yeah, interesting enough, that's the first time we've seen red side Lee Sin being banned first. Maybe kind of baiting Principality in a way. Maybe they are the ones that might ban Jace or Set instead. They're going to go for the Olaf instead, though. Now, Set. It's all eyes on Set now. Are Viv going to ban Set? It's not going to be banned. Now Set is open. Will it be first picked here on the side of Principality? I think all eyes are on the Set now. It's only been out for a while, and there we go. Set. We get our first game of Set in the EMEA Championships. The first really competitive game that we've seen of Set as well. Now, speaking quickly of Set, we've seen him play in multiple roles. He can play in the Baron lane. We've even seen Set jungle as well. He can sometimes be played even in the mid lane and a support. So Set first pick is such a huge flex pick, and we don't really know where this Set's going to go. We're going to have to see for the rest of the draft. But the Morgana is open. There we go again. Even though we saw Ryu play it in the support role, again, it's another flex pick. And we always talk about draft stress. I mean, I think we kind of repeat ourselves so much, but flex picks are always such a huge thing, especially on red sides.
It's the strength of red side. It's a fundamental of drafting in either League of Legends or Wild Rift. Like, red side drafting, the punishment for not getting, or the benefit for not getting first pick is you get last pick and you can flex all of your lanes. That's a thresh taken already, so it's not going to be the support Morgana this time. We've heard the rumors about jungle. We have seen it as a bot lane carry for the Morgana. So I think that's where I would assume it's going to go. But they have that room to play with all the way up until the last pick.
Yeah, so interesting enough, they're not going to be flexing the Morgana to support, but again, it can still be flexed to mid lane and Lane, sorry, down in the Dragon role, but Camille being picked, and also the Corki as well. But again, Camille's another flex champion. Camille most likely will be going to the Baron lane, but can be played in the jungle as well. But if I was to predict how this draft is kind of going, we're looking at Camille in the Baron lane, Set in the jungle, and then Corki either down in the Dragon lane or in the mid lane, depending on where the second phase goes. But we're looking at another pick now for the side of Viv. Maybe looking to try and keep that Morgana flex pick. So we might see either a top laner or a jungler. It's going to be a Jax. Now, Jax did recently get nerfed. His attack speed did go down, which kind of nerfed his wave clear in the jungle. So we've seen a little bit more Baron lane Jax in the current meta, but it primarily still gets played in the jungle. But again, it's another flex pick on the side of Viv Esports. And now we're just going to be looking at the second part of the ban phase to see what these two teams are going to ban.
Yeah, I mean, coming into this, we saw the Set first pick. I was like, all right, so Set's going to flex his abs. But everybody else is like, flex everything. Just flex the entire draft all the way through. I kind of agree, the changes to Jax. I also think that, like, when you look at the two champions, like, Set wants the team fight, and he can solo lane on a side lane on his own for a while, and then Jax is just going to murder him if it's ever a 1 versus 1 later on. So if it is a Baron lane Jax, then that would be what I was expecting. But Principality indicating that they don't want them to be able to flex it into the jungle from the side of Viv by banning out Millip's Darius that we saw in the last game. Really strong performance from that Darius. So just shutting out some of that potential.
I think this is very interesting. This is kind of Principality forcing the Jax to go into Baron lane, forcing that Jax to go up there, because you're banning the other Baron laners, which means that Jax might have to go up to the Baron lane and they might have to pick a jungler instead. We'll have to see what their second ban is, or maybe they know that this Jax is definitely going to be in the jungle and they're just banning out Baron laners. But that's sometimes what happens, we talk about red side with the flex picks, but sometimes on blue side, you can kind of force the pick to go into a certain position depending on your bans as well. Now, as mentioned, you have Darius taking that away from Miller. We saw the dominant performance in the late game last time. And again, another Baron lane being banned away as well in the eyes of Garen itself. So we're looking at potentially a mid laner and a Baron laner for the side of Viv, but we'll have to see.
Because Hells, at least in the pick and ban phase of game one, was saying that when you see a Diana ban, when you look at mid lane specifically, like Orianna, one of the only champions that she doesn't deal well with would be Diana. However, then Zed's available if you want to take an AD assassin, because you've already got the Morgana. So as I was kind of processing it, I'm like, well, Zed's up and you've already got your AP damage, and Jax has AP damage hidden in his kit in the Empower as well. So Zed taking as the assassin allows him to keep flexing a little bit on that Zed until last pick.
Yeah, so again, like you said, leaving that flex pick till last. Is the Jax going to go Baron lane? Is the Jax going to go jungle? We're going to be rounding out the draft down the side of Principality. Alistar support, we don't really get to see it too much, to be honest. The only bad thing about Alistar in this against the side of Viv Esports, and especially in the duo lane, is that when Alistar tries to headbutt, if Ryu can time the flay from Thresh, he can actually stop the headbutt pulverize combo completely. So Thresh is kind of a counter really to Alistar, but Alistar could be that frontline tank. And what we're looking at the side of Principality in the moment is just pure team fight. Set with the suplex, Alistar going in with headbutt pulverize, Wukong as well, even more team fight pressure, which looks like this might be a mid lane Set. It could be a mid lane Camille. Honestly, these three champions in the top side of map of Principality can honestly go anywhere. All these champions can go in every single role.
This would be a fairly new matchup to us, at least I would imagine, Set versus Zed. I'm trying to think it through. You do get the shield. We'll leave that to in-game if it is in fact the case. There are a couple of changes that could happen before that. So likely jungle or top lane. Everything could just be side lane carry. Those are ultra strong side laners, Fiora and Jax. Like if you let them 1v1 on the side lane, both of them are just going to take over the game. But like when you've got a team fight composition like Principality, hard to do that, surely.
Okay, I'm going to take a punt here at what I think is going to happen. So I think it's going to be Wukong in the jungle. I think it will be Camille top and then set mid. That's what I think. I think it's going to be that. I mean, Camille mid could also be a thing as well, but I think Wukong could definitely go in the jungle. On the side of Viv, we kind of have a bit of a, you know, we kind of know what's going on. I think the Jax will go into the jungle, and I think Fiora will go in the Baron lane, but it can be flexed around the other way as well. But a lot of flex picks, and maybe the teams don't even know themselves really what they're going to be playing as they get into the second game. But yeah, you know, Principality is all about team fights, Headbutt Pulverize, the Wukong Cyclone, the Hextech Ultimatum, the Suplex as well from the set. If they can group up on the side of Principality, they'll be able to take down members on the side of Viv Esports. But Viv Esports, as you said, you know, they have the side lane pressure, they have the Jax, they have the Fiora that can go into the Baron lane and go into the Duo lane later on. And then they have the Morgana for the mid lane, they have the Morgana for that wave clear, which Principality don't really have, and that could be the main difference in going into the second game.
With a Thresh as well. Thresh gives you so much unlocked potential to disengage in that mid lane. The way that you historically play 1-3-1 is side lanes push up, mid lane holds, and then backs away as soon as the enemy team try and engage. You've now got to throw a Zed into the mix as well, who's just going to be able to go into the side lane and 2v1 all the time. It's a little tricky for Viv's comp to pull off. You're saying, ooh, I'm guessing it's a Thresh here being up in top lane.
Yeah, that's a bit interesting, but go on.
Ryu's here. As soon as they see the Thresh, that's a flash. Instant respect on the support being here.
I wasn't really saying ooh about the Thresh, but Thresh being top lane is very, very interesting. I'm not saying ooh about the kind of the way the draft has got. I was a little bit right. I was right with the set mid lane, but it's actually Wukong Baron lane. Now, Wukong Baron lane, we've not really seen too much. We've really seen him in the jungle role, but there's been a few patches where Riot have kind of tried to nerf jungle Wukong and kind of tried to force Wukong in the Baron lane. Extra healing now towards minions. He doesn't get as much attack speed from jungle camps anymore as well. But I think Wukong's definitely going to struggle against the Fiora and Camille in the jungle as well. She's going to look to try and rotate, try and get to level 5 as soon as possible, and use the Hextech Ultimatum to go around the map.
I haven't spoken too much about Ryu coming into the series, but after a strong game 1 performance and seeing him on this Thresh, just walking up, knowing Alice is out of lane, he's like, I'm going to flay you. I'm still level 1, but I'm just going to whip you and flay you in the lane, take half of your health and force you to take the honey fruit. So I'm really liking how Ryu plays, at least just from his play style alone.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's one of the players coming into this tournament, which we weren't really too sure about. He has played in other roles before as well, but he's recently gone down to support role. But when you're paired with a player like Kranix as well, they probably learned so much from each other. I mean, Ryu just knows so much about the game. He's been around the Wild Rift scene for such a long time as well. And when you pair them two up against, pair them two with each other, you know what's going to happen. You can see Headbutt Pulverize. And again, that's actually another thing as well, is the
Black Shield.
The Black Shield as well. I was talking about the Flay, but for some reason, it completely blew over my mind. The Black Shield is another thing as well that kind of counters Alistar in a way.
Yeah, well read from Kranix. It also is going to help counter Set the later this game goes. Set, of course, with that big suplex, it is all about single target, dragging them into the backline. So if you can never find a target, another thing as well, that does more the tankier the opponent he picks up is. And Jax and Fiora don't get that tanky. Like, they fight you and they outlast you, but we're not talking like a Malphite or a Rammus or anything like that. Like, these are picks that want to duel with damage in the side lane, not just stand there and be tanky.
Yeah, I mean, the typical bruiser, really, you'll see them build like a little bit of tankiness, but most of the time you'll see like Bladed Ruin King, Trinity Force, which doesn't really give you a lot of tank stacks, more going for that dueling potential. Set is definitely an eye we have to keep on in the mid lane as we see Ryu going mid lane.
Play comes through from Ryu. He's even going to kind of block the ability for Blaster to ult there, and now Kranix is going to back away. This is slightly earlier than we normally see it, but Duo lane swapped into the mid lane, and it's going to open up the Zed to go bot and open side of that side lane pressure.
Yeah, you're going to be seeing this, I think, throughout this whole tournament, really, and throughout definitely the next this weekend. Anyway, you'll see the mid lane or the duo lane, on some teams go into that mid lane, just trying to get their mid lane priority, and that's one of the things.
4-player dive. They've got a cannon minion as well to at least push under tower. It just means that Millip has to get it there. Can't quite get it. This is like the tragic thing. Now they're even going to reveal that Kranix is here, and it means that Sensei can't really do anything in the lane. I think that fact that cannon minion didn't push under the wave has just saved Sensei's life and potentially set up this Rift Herald, because everyone is now converging. Package is about to spawn and Corki is in base ready for it.
Yeah, the package is going to spawn 4 minutes. Is the Ocean Drake as well as the first dragon? But it looks like both teams are kind of looking around this Rift Herald at the moment. Going to land as well. I think that's just going to be a little bit of poke damage, but it looks like Viv just don't want to contest this Rift Herald at all. They might be looking to go towards this first dragon.
If you'll indulge my analysis hat for a moment, it's not typically the role I'm going to take on. I wonder whether Rift Herald is more important for Viv to take because they're trying to play 1-3-1. So breaking that mid lane tower is infinitely more important for a team fight, against a team fighting composition. I'll shut up about that though, as Jax has been caught out. Tries to flash the lantern, can't quite get there. Both neutral objectives are going to go to Principality. That's huge.
Suplex. We love to see it. We love to see a suplex, the first suplex of set in the Wild Rift EMEA Championships. And honestly, like Viv are really slow on the rotations in the early game at the moment. They had the mid lane priority. They were trying to go up into the Baron lane to try and get a pick, but instead they couldn't get anything. There's fights happening everywhere.
Ryu's caught in the middle lane as there was a bot lane fight as well. It is going to be maybe a kill going over. No, actually, Jesus has managed to back himself away. Flash into the fight from Fiora. Millip trying to get that grand challenge to work. Does now proc it on to a second target, looking for all of those vitals. Can't quite get it. That's going to prevent the heal coming through, and Millip ends up falling. This team fight composition out of Principality a little harder to kill this time around.
That empowered rocket by Corki right at the end, landing on Morgana, landing on both Kranix and Ryu. They both got to so low health, but a little bit of an oversection. Millip was able to trade 1-for-1 in the end. But yeah, as you mentioned, the team fight composition of Principality are kind of offering at the moment and kind of being a little bit of a danger to Viv. As I mentioned already, the early game, Viv were a little bit slow on the rotations, and Principality were able to get the first 2 objectives. They were able to get the dragon and able to take the Rift Herald. Viv did take the first dragon of the game, but again, it's all about this mid lane. You can see both dual laners down in the mid lane at the moment, trying to get this mid lane priority so they're able to roam around the map. At the moment, this set is getting quite far ahead, and with set, most of the time, if you do get ahead with set, if you fall behind with set, it can be a little bit of struggle. But if you can get ahead with set, and if you can get a few items, especially when you have the likes of the Haymaker shield, you have the suplex as well for the big massive team fight potential, he's definitely going to be something that Viv needs to somehow deal with.
Yeah, and I think one of the ways of dealing it is, as we mentioned, their composition wants to be on the side lane and wants to peel Principality across the map. But you want to make sure that they can't take a 5v5. And that's what that first tower of the game is going to start to do for Viv. But there's been a good effort from Principality to attack this Zed in the bottom lane and just make sure that he doesn't have free reign in a 1v1. And we'll have to watch whether this mid lane fight plays out in the side of Kranix and Ryu, because their job in this game is basically don't die. But if they can get a catch, then that works too. Alistair hooked in. It's 3 versus 2 as Grand Challenge comes out. No Vitals proc. That's going to be a disengage. But again, that's what Viv need their middle lane duo to do. They do have to crush that tower though at some point. Actually, that's a really aggressive play from Tyrus. I don't know that that's exactly where they want to go. Rift Herald using the bottom lane, that's going to put even more pressure on Zed. Only 200 health left on the tower, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're just funneling gold onto the set at the moment, but Viv are looking to try and create that pressure. Hook just misses by Ryu, unfortunately, and they're not able to push down the mid lane. But yeah, the mid lane exchange was like flash, headbutt, flash, dash. Everything was happening at once in the mid lane. I'm not really too sure. Both teams were like, okay, we're going in, we're going out, we're going back in again. I think the headbutt away from Alistar kind of baited the Wukong in the end as well, because Wukong tried to flash forward to help his team. But yeah, they're funneling more gold onto this set at the moment. I haven't really seen the item builds for a while. I think he was going for the Black Cleaver really as the first item. Yeah, Black Cleaver, looking to go for the Steric Stage as the second item. So again, League of Black Cleaver, you're going to be seeing a lot of Black Cleavers on multiple members on the side of both teams really. Go for that Steric Stage, being able to get the extra shield as well. Steric Stage shield onto the Haymaker as well will be such a big shield and such a big thing to go with. But he could be caught.
Challenge comes out, Suplex comes through, but Suplex City population is full right now, and Blaster will fall under the tower. That's this side lane pressure that this Fiora is going to open up. Now the team fight in middle lane attempted to be started by Principality, but disengage is enough to get Viv out.
I want to bring up one of the key points that actually Hell's brought up in between game 1 and game 2. Ryu again with the roaming potential, being able to roam and kick off the set, and that means that this is a 4 versus 4 situation.
They need to buy time for Fiora here, though. As you said, it's 4 versus 4. It's even, and it shouldn't be when one member of Principality was dead to start this off. Now they've got Fiora in the mix. They can continue this fight as Viv get the first kill. Morgana ultimate is not really going to lock anyone, but it doesn't matter because there's the kill on to Jesus. It's Rift Herald has gone over to Principality. Dragon should eventually go over to Viv.
Yeah, here's the Inferno. I was about to say Elder Inferno. That's from last game. Infernal Dragon. We're getting a little bit too ahead. I'll get a little bit too ahead of myself here, but they're using this Rift Hold to try and create pressure in the mid lane. Sets out again.
Into the hook, Flay, and Fiora's found a low health Alistair. Should be able to at least force him out of the fight and tidy that up. The set trying desperately to get the damage down. Does get the shield. Survive face breaker isn't enough to break Zed's health bar, and Zed survives. It's starting to swing Viv's way.
Yeah, Viv Esports at the moment, they're not going to be able to take the Dragon off of this. It looks like Principality are the ones that are going to try and do it, but Amy's really, really low. I don't know if this is a fight you want to take.
Millip can get over the wall, and here's the damage coming out from Viv. It was a bit of a bait. It looked like they were gifting. Perfect hook lands as Ryu is going to set up another kill for Millip, and it was such a bait. The Trojan horse of the low health Dragon sets up 3 more kills in favor of Viv.
Yeah, Principality and especially Amy were just way too low on health, and even though the members on the side of Viv were so low as well, they had a numbers advantage. I think it was like 4 versus 3 in the end there. Hopefully we can get like a replay or something of that play, but you know, when you're on the side of Principality and when you're trying to make these team fights a possibility, you need to make sure you have enough health for it. You need to make sure you're at least at an even numbers advantage, and unfortunately for them, they weren't able to, and now the set's starting to fall behind a little bit. Again, the rotations from Ryu down to the duo lane, being able to catch out Set, and also got caught in the mid lane as well, and now this is where Set could be a little bit of a struggle. And again, more rotation.
2 versus 1 in the bot lane. This is exactly what we were talking about. Attack the side lane and prevent anything from happening in mid lane, because now Principality have to drag people down to the bottom lane to stop the Jax. And here's where mid lane's in threat, because does Amy know that there's a Zed here? There's a Thresh here to try and attack under the turret. It's actually not Amy they're going to go for. They're going to look for Blaster, and Blaster's going to re-engage. Suplex out as Zed tries to escape. A lot of damage down in favor of Principality to start, though, as that mid tower is still healthy. Hextech Ultimatum dashes out from a lot of the crowd control, but it's not enough to keep Camille alive. Rampage for Millip, and it's all starting to twist further in favor of them.
Yeah, Viv getting so far ahead now. You know, I think you explained it perfectly before that fight even happened. You know, being able to get that pick in the duo lane means that you have to send members. The side of Principality, you have to send members, and then it opens up that mid lane tower. It opens up the play in the mid lane, and instead of going on to the Camille, they actually found Set again. You know, rotations of Set this game have not really been too great. You know, getting caught in the duo lane, getting caught in the mid lane twice now, and they tried to turn it, but to be honest, even the tower can't really help Principality at the moment because Viv are so far ahead. You can see he has 2 items now, but you can see the gold lead. He's over 1,000 gold behind as well, and that's pretty much the same across the board. But look at Millip in the top lane. We haven't really spoken too much about him, but he's 5, 1, and 4. He nearly has 12,000 gold. That's pretty much 2,000 gold, or 2,000 gold plus ahead of like the rest of his team.
Oh, the attempted engage on Kranix just fails, and actually Viv are going to opt into the fight. Corky did just pick up package to start this engage. It's a 3 versus 3, but when Alice is 20% health, that's not really in favor of Principality at all. I was going to say, like, Corky picking up package even before the timer of Baron started is a little early for my tastes, but if Viv do choose to fight in the jungle, a package could go, and it's looked for a moment to be Principality picking a fight topside, but Viv have rotated up. Wukong is burning down with the Ignite. He's basically out of this fight as that last tick will pick him up. Zed's Deathmark will proc and take Camille out of the fight as well. Amy is gone. Jesus is gone as well, as it's a double kill for Tyra's messy end to this fight as Set has hung on for just about long enough. Kranix and Sharks are going to push down the tower with Millip. It's 5 kills in exchange for 2 in favor of Viv.
Yeah, 10,000 goalie for the side of Viv, and again, another tower dive. There's not really much they could do. Set did get like a few shutdowns and a few kills there, so that's definitely going to help him out, but looking at the team fight again, you can just see they're trying to get a team fight going on the side of Principality. The package was really good as well, the zone of members off the Viv, but they're just too far behind at this point, and there's not really much they could do. You can see how much damage Set can do, especially with the Haymaker tree damage as well. You can see he did get a double kill, but in the end, another tower dive, another convincing victory for Viv Esports, and they're going to be looking to try and go for this next dragon. It is the mountain dragon that's going to be spawning in about 20 seconds time.
Wild Rift exclusive players won't have been exposed to the danger that is Rumble and the Equalizer in team fights, but that's basically the package in these team fights. It's like if you land it in a good spot, you can see how quickly it can even up a team fight with the amount of damage it does. But nevertheless, that 10,000 gold lead is really astronomical, and I fear that once this dragon goes over to Viv, if they do manage to take it, really hard for Principality to output enough damage to eat through the shield and eat through the health bars of Viv.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really spoken too much about, late game of these two comps as well, but we spoke a little bit about Jax and Fiora. You can see they pretty much have exactly the same build, but speaking of which, Millet might get caught here.
2 versus 1 against Millet, but there's an engage in the bottom side soon as well. As Millet is going to... Oh, no way. Proto belts out, gets the crab movement speed as well. And look, Viv have already set up in the bottom side as soon as they catch one person. If Blaster can get a good ult here, it would be enough to turn it back around. But actually, pings on the map because Kranix was in mid lane. And that's a sign that Viv know exactly how to play this composition out. We heard our nation in the interview you did with him say, we don't know how good Viv are as a team. We think we're better on the side of Zero Zone. Well, Viv are very confident playing the macro game in this game, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was about to say as well, the rotations and the way that Viv are playing around the map are just so well. They see that maybe on the top side of the map, like in that situation, they know that 2 members are up there. So look, let's try and make another play on another side of the map, or they could try and get a pick on one side of the map and then look for a play on the other side of the map because they're going to have that numbers advantage. They're kind of hesitating around this Baron at the moment. They can take this Baron really quickly with Morgana, but Fiora is down in the duo lane though, but she's going to be getting that source of pressure. But as mentioned, they have so much late game potential with Fiora, Jax, Morgana.
League macro 101. I'm going to cut you off. This is a lesson for newer players. Fiora's going to create a problem in the bottom side that as soon as somebody from Principality shows up, the rest of the team from Viv start Baron. If nobody shows up, Fiora takes multiple towers and inhibitors, and Viv just never start the Baron. And here we go. Millet started. Camille will show. Millet backs away. The team can start Baron if they want to.
Yeah, this is a jungler on the side of Principality. Honestly, Viv could honestly just go for the dragon, but instead they go for fight.
They're going to go on to Blaster. Oh, brilliant. Hook lands again, but you back away from the fight, and you buy the time for Fiora. Again, Fiora Grand Challenge goes out. Can Millet get the damage down? A little bit messy here, as under the turret is not enough damage down. 3 people are committed. The Baron is going to go over. Millet is fine to trade his life here for this. Even gets the turret. Baron should be over to Viv. Incoming engage though, as Alistair's going to go in. Remember, there is no smite available. Teleport coming through. Alistair has fallen. Baron is already down before Camille shows up. Amy just has to pick up kills to try and dissuade this. It's Jax picking up a second kill from this. Camille is going to fall for the triple kill, as Jax is going to keep the damage coming. If Jax can get it, no, it's Morgana is going to shut off a quadra kill. Stasis comes through. Tyrus doesn't get the 4th kill. Double kill with the triple kill. Full house for Viv, all in exchange just for Miller.
Yep, as you said, that Viv will take that any day of the week. Like I said, perfect macro on the side of Viv. And the thing is with Fiora as well, there's no one that could really deal with the Fiora at this stage of the game. That's why they had to send Amy down there as a jungler. But yeah, that's it. They needed one more fight, and that's it. That is going to be the game. And Viv Esports are going to take a pretty convincingly 2-0 victory against Principality.
Yeah, that was a really impressive game. Very patient and played out to the perfect way that you would want a team to play out a macro game like that, where it's just like, okay, I'll push the side lane. If they commit to me, you take the Baron. And this is one of the things that I think people get so frustrated in with like solo queue, and that is wildly different in competitive. As soon as you have that communication, it's so easy to play out with that kind of lead.
Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned during the game, getting that split push pressure. They had Jax, they had Fiora as well, so multiple members can split push on the side of Viv Esports. And in the end, it was Viv Esports that took the game. And yeah, this early game pressure as well. And the early game rotations again by Ryu, and you can see in the replays now, Ryu again being kind of the forefront of this team, really. We spoke about, Kranix before the game as well. Again, Kranix had a really solid performance on the Morgana. We can see that he can play AP mages, and they can flex that Morgana the duo lane or even in the support role as well. And yeah, in the late game as well, they were able to get the kind of the split side of Principality. They weren't able to that, you know, on the side of Principality, they weren't able to find that team fight really that they really needed. And, you know, in the end, it was Viv just kind of using Principality to just go around the map and kind of toy with them in the end.
Yeah, that's the difficulty with these split team fights when you're running against sideline. Is like you have to you basically just have to full on commit to the team fight and hope that you get what you need from it because you have the numbers advantage. It makes it a little difficult when the enemy have Morgana Thresh and they're the ones that are kind of holding people back. So really impressive by Viv. I thought Principality did show us quite a bit, especially in the first game. I think this one was a harder one to play out for Principality side of things, but certainly looking forward to seeing how their progression through the lower bracket goes as they continue. But Viv, I was wondering coming into the series after the interview, like, are we wrong with the way that we rated Viv highly coming from the Purge tournament that we casted in January? But this is actually better than what we saw from Viv in that tournament. I would put money on that. Like, I felt like there were rough edges in January. Feels like they've really ironed them out.
Yeah, I mean, as I said in the pre-game as well, they've been playing with each other for such a long time now. They've swapped out Ryu now. Ryu's now their support. And again, I feel like Ryu is kind of the rock of this team. He's the one that's making rotation. He's the one that's going around the map, being able to make these picks. And in the end, Viv Esports take it, and we get two zeros today, Stress. We don't, unfortunately, get any 2-1s today, but hopefully tomorrow we might get some 2-1s.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get a few more closer games. I mean, we started with a 12-0 game for the day, but our second series of the day was a very convincing game from Viv, or 2 games, I should say, convincing from Viv. Let's head over to Hells and hear a little bit more from the players from Viv.
Yeah, hello. That was a very amazing and dominating performance from you, from the team. And firstly, I want to ask, was this an expected performance? Was it expected that you would absolutely dominate this enemy?
I think we were expecting to dominating them. I sadly didn't know the roster that much because I'm also not that much into the Spanish league, but I think we were definitely the more dominant team and knew that we could easily wipe them with 2-0. So, and I think we proved that right today.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about Spanish teams, what do you think about Zero Zone? That was the team that played before you. They showed an absolutely dominating performance as well, and you facing off against them is, in my opinion, going to be an amazing match. But what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I definitely think that Zero Zone is a really strong team, especially the jungler, Lubunia. We see him a lot and also on solo queue, especially on Rengar, Kha'Zix, Lee, and he's really strong. But not only the jungler, overall the team chemistry is really good. And I'm looking forward to playing them in the next round. I think it's going to be a tough match against them.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to that match. And then the last question is, how do you see yourself facing against the higher ranked teams, right? Like, you're a former WREC player, you know how good they are. And how do you see yourself facing with the current lineup of your team, which seems incredibly powerful to me, against teams like Game Lord and WREC in this competition?
I definitely think we have a chance against WREC, Game Lord, Na'Vi, Team Queso. We have scrimmed already for like the past month together. Swapped also like Ryu for Floor because also Floor, our support, is currently not available. But I do think we have a chance against the top teams and still have a way to go.
Well, that's great there. Seems like you have a lot of confidence in you and your team.
Yep.
So thank you very much for the interview. Wish you the best of luck in the competition. And then, yeah, we go back to Stress Stewart.
Thank you.
Great to hear from Kranix. I'm going to open myself up to be flamed from Rick's members. I'll take this bullet and say, well, last time we saw Rick's, you and I didn't think their games were as strong as they have been in the past. So we'll see in the future if Kranix goes up against his former team to see who comes out on top. There are so many storylines coming out of today. Like, I would not have put Viv and Zero Zone as like a super ultra hype matchup, but now watching these two, how well they played today, that's a must see next week or whenever it is.
Definitely.
I need to find out when it is.
yeah, definitely. I mean, both of these teams, you know, both Viv and Zero Zone, both really dominant on day number 1 here of the EMEA Championships. You can see the damage and the gold graph as well. And, you know, we're speaking about Kranix. I'm actually glad we actually talked about Kranix because that was kind of, you know, the talking point. You know, can he play these AP majors? We haven't seen him play for a long time, but you can see that they have that flexibility in that dual lane, which can be so strong, and especially during drafts as well. You know, Kranix can play Morgana, Ryu can either play Morgana support, and he brought out his Vayne as well. So I'm really excited. I still think that this team roster can do really, really well. And again, you know, as Hells mentioned already, you know, the Zero Zone versus Viv matchup in the second round of the upper bracket now, that's definitely going to be one to watch going into the second rounds.
Yeah, it will be. We'll take a look and see who had the play of the game, whether it was set up by Ryu. We heard that Ryu's not the actual full-time support, but looked pretty good in this game. But looking at the play of the game, Stu, I mean, this is around that Baron, or around the Baron to set up the win.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at this point, we kind of spoke about this already, but they were able to create that pressure in the bot side of the map. And you can see Viv Esports, they were kind of playing the macro game completely perfect. You can see Jax in the end getting a triple kill. We were hoping maybe for another pentakill. That's twice now that Viv got really, really close to getting the pentakill, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to. Yeah, in the end, I think the main thing to take away from Viv Esports is their macro. Individually, they're really, really talented as well, but their macro game as well, being able to split push and that communication that they have as well. It's like, okay, there's multiple members down in the duo lane with Fiora, let's go for this Baron. And you saw in the end, Principality were like, wait, Baron's being taken, we need to go and try and get it. And in the end, they was just going in one by one. And his team fight composition that Principality brought up, they didn't really get a real 5 versus 5 team fight. It was just so split throughout the whole game.
Pulled across the map, baited almost as much as I was by 2 triple kills that could have been pentakills, but nevertheless, we live on for another day, and so do Principality. They have the lower bracket ahead of them, but for Viv, let's take a look at who was the player to secure the MVP. I think multiple people could get this. I think there's even an argument for Ryu to get it, but I mean, Kranix looked good. Tyra's looked good. Ryu looked good. I mean, these team fights were very impressive. It's actually going to be Miller after that Darius performance from the first game.
Yeah, I think both the games, I think it was a little bit of maybe, you know, nerves coming into this series, and in the early laning phase in the first game, he was looking a little bit shaky. But when he got into late game on that Darius, even in the second game as well, when he was able to get his hands on the Fiora, in the end, he had so much gold as well. But I think, as you mentioned, the MVP could have gone to anyone on the side of Viv Esports. You know, Ryu with the Roams, Kranix on the Vayne as well, and showing the AP mages, Sharks as well in the mid lane. Every single member on the side of Viv Esports put up a great performance, but deservedly, Millup is able to get the MVP.
Yeah, deserving MVP. We're going to welcome back in Hells to wrap up the day with us. And I mean, we hear everybody talk about solo queue Baron lanes. Oh, it's not quite so good. But I mean, we saw 2 MVPs go to Baron laners today. Like both Baron laners, when you can communicate around that side lane, we saw the impact you can have. And I feel like Miller very well deserved, especially like the Fiora decision making was great. Hells, I know you were keeping an eye on the second game. Anything else you want to wrap up on that second series from us?
I mean, honestly, MVP of the game, who should you give it to? Like, they were all the MVPs of the game, in my opinion. They just played so incredibly well together. And like, really, that's what I have to say. They were all MVPs to me, at least.
Yeah, they certainly were. I think we saw a lot of interesting differences in playstyle today. We saw a lot of teamfight compositions fall behind early game, and a lot of the side lane compositions run away with it. Stuart, do you think that's indicative of like the meta where we are right now? We've talked about those mages like holding mid lane and then backing away. Are you expecting more from this over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think, I mean, as we've mentioned a little bit already, you know, kind of the meta's still like up in the air a little bit. We haven't really seen competitive games for a month, and it's been a long time since then. And obviously with Set coming in as well, and Yuumi eventually coming in as well, which might put a little swing on things as well. But we might have to wait for a little bit for Yuumi, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, you know, the meta is still up there. I'm glad we got to see Set today. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get the victory, but hopefully we see some more Set. No Jace today, 100% banned throughout the whole day. But yeah, as you said, you know, the AP mages and everything as well. It was just a really, really good, interesting day, really, to see what the meta's shaping up.
Very fun day. 2 of our Titans are going to take to the Wild Rift tomorrow, though, when we are going to see 2 more series. This time it's going to be Game Lords taking to the Rift, as well as Team Queso. So when we look at tomorrow's matchups, I feel like everyone's going to say that it's a little bit one-sided, like Game Lords taking on Aphelion in our first matchup of the day, and then Team Queso, as you said, taking to the Rift in our second series. I know we've all 3 of us predicted that these are going to be games, but is there one of these matchups, Hells, that you think has an opportunity of going not to be a 2-0 for the Game Lord or Queso side?
No. That's the simple answer. No.
Short and sweet. Okay. Well, that's the thing that we love here with an open bracket as well. There are obviously things that we might very well see upsets come from. This is the filled out first day of the bracket. So Zero Zone took the 2-0. Viv Esports took the 2-0, both looking convincingly. I'm hoping that the Supremacy or Felian can at least give us competitive matchups, surprise us a little bit. And then we take a look down into the lower bracket where it's Last Chance Saloon for Weigers and Principality. Stuart, looking at those two teams, any thoughts on who you think looked the stronger coming out of today?
I mean, we spoke a little bit about the upper bracket, about the close match between Viv Esports and Zero Zone, but I think the lower bracket as well, Weigers versus Principality, both of them didn't really have the best performances today, but again, it's another all-Spanish clash down in the lower side of the bracket, and like you said, it's last chance for both of them teams, so going into that lower bracket, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board, I guess, test in a way, some new things, and also look at the teams as well and make sure that they know what they're doing going into it. Because, as you said, if they lose that game, they're out of the tournament, and they have to try and go through the last chance qualifier.
That would be an early exit before the last chance qualifier, which feels like it's months away. But given how quickly Show 1 came up and our first two series, I'm very excited to see how the tournament progresses. That's pretty much it. That's day one in the books. And we've all been waiting for this moment for so long, where we've been able to get onto the Rift for official esports tournament for Wild Rift. That's it for day one for the Wild Rift EMEA Championships. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Hells, for joining me. I've been James O'Leary. We will catch you tomorrow for day two. Some massive games right around the corner.